A mother of 4 gone missing, then found murdered.
It's the Karen Swift story, the woman last seen alive at a Halloween party and was a second woman also in danger. An all-new 2020 starts right now.
It was a really big deal. This beautiful blonde-headed lady comes up missing after a Halloween party.
It was just supposed to be a fun night out, adults only.
What's the overall view of this young mom who suddenly goes missing?
People liked Karen, they liked being around her.
Tonight, the shocking trial and the ex-wife you'll only see on 2020.
This is a man I was married to that I shouldn't have been afraid of.
But what about his first wife?
My mom was going out more, which made me start to question why.
When they found Karen's vehicle, it had a badly damaged flat tire.
It appears that this screw was mainly inserted into the tire.
It was literally screwed into the tire. So this is where you found the smashed cell phones?
In this area here.
Not one, but 2 smashed phones.
I thought maybe somebody saw her walking and grabbed her.
She doesn't hold back. I can see Karen going over there and letting him have it.
This case is wild, to put it mildly. It's wild because the circumstances are just so unique.
Karen Swift's Halloween costume was a very sexy black costume.
Black skirt, black tights, black shoes, and she had a black, kind of a Mardi Gras type mask that she was wearing.
I think she was supposed to be a cat. She had a skirt on. It was very form-fitting.
So it was va-va-voom.
It was.
What began as an innocent night of Halloween partying was just the beginning of a tragic story that would engulf not only Karen Swift, but her whole family and almost everyone in this close-knit community.
There was going to be a costume party on October 29th of 2011. It was held at a place that here in Dyersburg it's called The Farms. It's a country club that's attached to the golf course.
Dyersburg, Tennessee is just a small hamlet in western Tennessee. It's not far from the Mississippi River.
Dyersburg is a small, very closely knit town. Everybody pretty much knows everybody.
I think the majority of the population still has that old Southern hospitality, kind of greet everybody, wave. If you know somebody when you're driving down the road, you wave to them.
There's only 38,000 people here. Most people have grown up here, lived here their whole lives.
And I think that you take the word of mouth and you add the social media aspect to it now, and everyone is almost always in everyone else's business.
44-year-old Karen Swift marries husband David in 1989. Originally from Arkansas, they moved to Dyersburg, Tennessee with their family about 2 decades later in 2008.
When I first moved to Tennessee, I really liked it. I enjoyed it. It was very peaceful, and getting to know all my new friends and, meet new people was fun.
They didn't know anyone in Dyer County, and they made the move here, apparently for the schools. There are some good schools in this area.
Together, David and Karen Swift had 4 kids, 2 boys and 2 younger girls, including their daughter Ashley.
Growing up, my mom was very involved. She loved taking us to sports, dance, cheer. She just had that very caring and nurturing personality.
She was just a wonderful mother. She would do anything for her children. They were number one in her life. They came before anything else.
Karen was always kind of a fun-loving, bubbly type personality. Tried to, even when things were not going particularly well, tried to keep a positive attitude.
Her friends really liked her, and she had a lot of friends. So she was someone who was beautiful, someone who appeared to be happy with her life, and things appeared to be going very well for her.
Karen was outgoing, gregarious. She made friends very easily. People liked Karen. They liked being around her.
And on this cool, clear October night, Karen was headed out with her friends, while her daughter Ashley, who was 9 at the time, was heading to a sleepover at her friend's house.
I remember I was staying at a friend's house, and my mom was going to a Halloween party with some of her friends, and my dad was going to stay home with my sister.
Karen Swift went to the Halloween party with Bill Bona and Kathy Bona.
The party was hosted by 15 to 20 different couples. The women kind of did all the decorations, put everything together. The guys just kind of showed up.
And it was just supposed to be a fun night out. Adults only, dress up, have fun in a costume, and just socialize with one another. Karen arrived at the Halloween party probably around 8 or a little after 8 p.m.
That night, Karen was in a pretty good mood. I mean, she was able to go out on the dance floor and talk to different people. People were drinking, having a good time. Music was playing. People were out dancing. Karen was walking around, talking to several people. I remember seeing her on the dance floor at least one time.
And she left with Bill and Kathy Bona probably around midnight that night. And they went to McDonald's to get some French fries.
So they went through the McDonald's drive-thru and then went home to Kathy and Bill Bona's house.
While they're at Bill and Kathy's house, she gets a call from her daughter, Ashley.
When we were starting to go to bed, I decided that I wanted to go home. I called my mom and asked her to come get me.
Karen immediately told Kathy, "I've got to go, my baby's sick, I'm gonna go pick her up." So she did. She left, she went and picked up her daughter at a friend's house and then went home.
By now, of course, it's around 1:30 in the morning, the next day, October 30th. On her way home, Karen texts her husband, David, to let him know she's heading back to their house.
When she told him about going to pick up Ashley, he sent her a text response about the garage door is closed, come in the side door.
And then they arrived back at the Swift home around 2 a.m. that morning.
Karen goes to sleep downstairs while her husband David is sleeping in a different bedroom upstairs.
David did not get up until the next morning around 10 or 10:30 when the girls woke him up.
It's now that the Swift family's entire world turns upside down.
The next morning, Karen was not at home. The girls were the first ones, according to David, to tell him that their mother was missing.
Remember, Karen and Ashley had returned home around 2 in the morning and went to sleep. But now it seems that sometime after that, Karen had somehow disappeared.
Between the time of probably 10 and 11 o'clock, Kathy Bona, her friend, had been trying to call her. David Swift, her husband, had been trying to call her. And so now people are starting to get seriously worried that something's happened to her.
After Bill and Kathy Bona didn't get a response from her, they kind of said, well, something's not right. So they called David and asked him, where is Karen? And then they called the sheriff's office and said that she was missing.
Shortly after that, David made a phone call to the sheriff's department and reported that his wife was missing.
Karen's disappearance quickly became a mystery, and it would begin with the discovery of her abandoned car, a key piece of evidence that transforms this from a missing persons case into something far more sinister.
So she shows up missing. There was a lot of different theories about what was going on. There were many clouds of suspicion. It was a really big deal. This beautiful blonde-headed lady, mother of 4, comes up missing after a Halloween party. Everybody was talking about it.
The morning of Karen's disappearance, her car is discovered less than a half mile away from her home.
At the corner of Millsfield Highway and Harness in Dyer County is where the broken down SUV of 44-year-old Karen Swift was found.
I saw the car sit there for a day or so.
Karen's gone, and that's what's important, and we just want her to come back.
You could walk to it. It wasn't that far away on the highway, and it was there with a flat tire. So that's a clue. Her car's there.
Karen's vehicle was on the side of the road on Millsfield Highway right next to Harness Road. That's the road that Karen had lived on. Karen was not there.
It was in a normal state. It was parked on the side of the road. It had a flat tire to the right side. And the investigation revealed that it was a screw in the tire.
Why would her car be up there? If she had come home, there was no one who said Karen walked home from up on the highway, so it would appear that Karen had left. But it wasn't very far for her to suddenly get a flat tire either.
Investigators believe that the tire had been manually deflated and that the screw had been intentionally inserted into the tire. Which begs the question, did somebody put it there on purpose to leave Karen stranded?
When we observed the car, we noticed a screw in the tire. If you look at this very closely, it appears that this screw was manually inserted into the tire.
It was literally screwed into the tire.
Literally screwed into the tire. And my theory was right once we sent it off for forensic analysis. It was manually placed in that tire.
And I wanted you to show me this screw. This is one that you actually ran over.
This is a screw I actually ran over in my patrol unit that went all the way up in the tire. And you can see where it was on the road.
Yeah. A lot of friction.
A lot of friction. This screw has no friction.
The lack of friction making investigators believe the screw hadn't been driven on. But how could that be?
They had not been in Dyer County that long because they had moved there. Karen's from Pocahontas, Arkansas, which is about 2 hours from Dyersburg. And it was about 4 years later that she disappeared.
The Swifts seemed to have a great life in Pocahontas. They were young and in love and devoted parents, as their friend Holly Sutton tells us.
We met through just public school and ended up being fast friends. They were excellent parents. They had rules. They were fairly strict. They did everything with their children.
We moved ultimately for my dad's job to Tennessee. It was just a better opportunity. I enjoyed it. It was very peaceful. I do think she was happy. I think that she wasn't necessarily fully herself in Tennessee.
Karen wasn't acting like herself, and turns out there was a reason for it. Strains on their marriage, David's new job as a manager at a manufacturing plant, and Karen's apparent change in lifestyle in Dyersburg worried those closest to her.
She had just mentioned to me that it was very different. She just said that, she says, I don't know that you would like it here. But she did say that she was meeting people and getting out.
I was used to her tucking me into bed every night or being home every night, getting up with her and going to the gym, and that kind of slowly stopped the longer that we lived in Tennessee.
That was not their lifestyle in Pocahontas. They didn't even social drink. We didn't need that. It was hard to hear because that was not them.
As soon as she went missing, it was Chief McCright's supposition that David, at the very least, had something to do with it.
And we finally just decided that, hey, he's going to be the only person that can really help us in this case to tell us about where his wife might have gone.
If you have a seat for me right over there.
He came in and gave my guys an interview. That interview didn't go very well, we didn't think.
And I said, so are you going to a costume party or what are you doing? Are you all having a party? And she said, no, I'm just going to Kathy's. I said, well, okay.
He really wasn't concerned to me about where she might have gone.
Okay, was there any kind of argument or anything then?
No, I just, it was very brief. I wanted to make sure that Ashley was okay and that she was okay, because I questioned Karen about driving and getting her. I said, you know, if you can't drive, I will get Ashley. And that was all the conversation was.
Okay. How close did you get to her? Could you tell whether she'd been drinking or not?
Oh yeah, you could tell. I could always smell she drinking, you know.
He was saying, like, you know, that she drank and she was pretty much an alcoholic.
Although drunk and been drinking, and she was so drunk once that she was had passed out. He was just so drunk that Sharon was drinking so much that.
So that was just, you know, I should, as a husband, be concerned about where is my wife.
If you had to use an estimated guess right now, where do you think she is?
I don't know. I'm so worried about her.
I would say my dad's reaction was, he was obviously very worried, but you have to think I was 9 and my sister was 5, so I think he was trying to put on a very brave face for us.
As the search for Karen Swift continues, investigators are reminded of a horrible incident Karen had with a neighbor just months before.
There was an issue where John Hogshooter had poisoned a couple of dogs in the neighborhood. One of the dogs belonged to David and Karen Swift.
Anybody who has a dog and they say their neighbor poisoned their dog, that would certainly be bad blood.
She doesn't hold back. If she feels that she's got something to say, she's going to say it.
A suspect emerges for investigators. As the search for Karen Swift continues, investigators cast a wide net for suspects and leads.
There was a man that she had met at a concert about 20 miles from Dyersburg across the Mississippi River.
It never grew into a full romantic relationship. It was more of an acquaintance. I think they talked on the phone a few times, maybe sent text messages back a few times, but it never developed any further than that.
His last text to Karen was, she told him that she was at the Halloween party, hanging out with some friends. And his last text was something essentially, great, text me sometime, I'd love to take you out to dinner. And we quickly concluded that, you know, obviously it didn't sound like somebody who was obsessed, and he was ruled out as a suspect.
Found out where he was at the time of her disappearance, and that alibi checked out.
But investigators have another possible lead to follow as they learn of a terrible conflict between Karen Swift and one of her neighbors.
John Hogshooter lived across the road, diagonal from their residence.
Catty-cornered, probably not more than 150 feet from their home.
Mr. Hogshooter had previously had a criminal matter charged against him regarding some sort of issue with one of their dogs.
He had gained some notoriety in the neighborhood. He's kind of a rough around the edges fella, generally.
There was an issue where John Hogshooter had poisoned a couple of dogs in the neighborhood, and one of the dogs belonged to David and Karen Swift.
He put some poison, some sort of poison concoction out on his property. One of the Swift's dogs got into the poison and was also sickened. The Swift's dogs did not die.
On October 7th, Karen actually went to this man's house to confront him about her dog being poisoned. John was eventually charged with animal cruelty in that case, and he actually pleaded guilty.
While one neighborhood dog did die from the poisoning, the Swift dog managed to survive after being rushed to the vet and having its stomach pumped, the incident creating bad blood between the neighbors.
Anybody who owns a dog and they say their neighbor poisoned their dog, that would certainly be bad blood.
I know Karen and the Hogshooter guy, I knew of the fight they'd had.
She doesn't hold back. She doesn't hold back. Like, if she feels that she's got something to say, she's going to say it.
When she was missing, he became one of the first suspects that the sheriff's department looked at.
Investigators want to talk to John Hogshooter. He'd been poisoning neighborhood dogs, including Karen's. They bring him into this interrogation room, and they have some questions to ask.
John, what I want to talk to you about, I'm going to just shoot straight from the hip. Are you aware of what's going on out there where you live?
Yeah, I'm well aware of what's going on out there.
What I'm trying to do is clear people. And And I know that the incident that happened with the dogs out there, I know all, about that because of the prior investigator that had been working that case. What I'm trying to do is find out your whereabouts on the 30th on that Saturday.
We interviewed John and asked him that he, of course, we've been beat about the dogs, but we wanted to know, did he know Karen?
His memories of Karen Swift differs from what others have said about the tension between the two of them.
What we want to do is make sure you had no involvement in Karen's disappearance.
I don't know. The only way I even seen a picture of this lady is my wife showed me a picture of her. I was like, oh, is that what she looks like? The only other time I've ever seen her is out mowing her grass in the summertime from my house.
Had he ever had any contact with Karen? Had he spoken with her? What kind of involvement had he ever had with Karen or David or anybody else in that neighborhood?
I go up there and talk to him and I sit out on the porch. From that area, from my house or his house, is the only time I've ever seen that lady. Out there mowing the yard. She's in a bikini. What do you think? Everybody's going to be... Like,
right, I understand.
We're men,
You're a man, you're going to look at her, ain't you?
Yeah, but, just like, yeah, she's in a bikini up there, and that's it. And that's the only time I've ever seen her.
And he said no, he just saw her at one time out in the yard, and, like a neighbor waved or something to the nature of that.
When did you find out that this woman was missing? When did you know about it?
I would say probably somewhere in the middle of the week.
This past week?
Yeah, or whenever she came up missing, probably middle of the week.
Somebody tell you, or you see it on the news, or?
How did I find out? Maybe it might. Well, I don't have TV, so I don't watch TV, so I don't know how I found out. My wife may have told me, or I don't remember. I think it's because I honestly don't know.
As soon as they started talking to him, he was extremely cooperative.
Where is my truck?
It's locked up and impounded in an enclosed building.
They impounded his vehicle. They got a search warrant, searched his house.
What I'm trying to say, if we want to look at your house, I'd rather for you not to go home before we got there. That's what I'm saying.
Well, my clothes and stuff, I washed my clothes over at my daughter's house, so all my clothes, I'll probably go over there and take a shower and get my clothes for sure. I can't even get in because my keys in the truck. There's a gold key in where the ashtray thing goes right there. There's a gold key. That's the only way I can get in and get my clothes to.
Okay.
He was very relaxed. He wasn't tense about it. It was obvious that, he wasn't nervous. I thought it was a good interview.
There was no evidence in the end that pointed that John Hogshuter had any knowledge of this at all.
But then investigators find Karen Swift's 2 cell phones, almost totally destroyed, near the property of John Hogshuter.
Finding these 2 phones very close to John's property was very concerning for the police.
When we discovered the phones, they were damaged. They were crushed. Somebody might have stomped them and then pitched them there.
So you've got the investigators. They don't know where Karen Swift is. They know she's missing. Her phone was not in her car. They didn't see it around the car, so they start searching for the phone.
So we decided we were going to do a grid from where her car was found back to the house.
So this is where you found the smashed cell phones?
In this area here, the phones were found.
Yeah.
They found 580-something feet from their driveway, from Karen's driveway to this location.
A highway patrolman comes across not 1, but 2 smashed phones.
This is images of them, right? They were shattered.
That phone was shattered before it even went there, because if you had thrown it in that grass, you would never got this damage to this phone.
But as close to the Swifts' home as the phones are, they're also very close to John Hogshuter's home. That neighbor, the Swifts say they had a confrontation with.
Finding those 2 phones within proximity of John Hogshuter's house raises many, many questions for investigators in this case, for obvious reasons.
Investigators found out that Hog Shooter was at this church event.
We knew where he was on her day of disappearance, and we were able to establish his alibi.
There was no evidence in the end that pointed that John Hogshuter had any knowledge of this at all.
A thorough investigation was done, and he had alibi witnesses, and we were able to pretty quickly eliminate him as a suspect.
With Hogshuter cleared, the investigation continues. At this point, the most important unanswered question, where is Karen?
Some people just walk away from their lives. It happens all the time. Without a body, they don't know that a crime's been committed.
We constantly relied on getting them to the media. Of course, the sheriff would make press releases, social media. Everybody knew that we were trying to locate her.
There's a landmark in Dyer County, and it's a large cross where you can see it from a good distance. And near that, within a few hundred feet, is a cemetery.
Bledsoe Cemetery is very spread out. Some of the headstones there are over 100 years old and even older. It's a very rural area. A local pastor and a congregant were in Bledsoe Cemetery on December 10th examining overturned headstones. And as they're surveying this type of damage, they notice a human body part coming out of some kudzu bushes.
Karen Swift has been missing for 6 weeks at this point. The police arrive and head to this nearby area full of kudzu.
Kudzu, they're vines, and kudzu can cover everything. It can cover very large trees and hang down. Kudzu can cover everything that it crawls across, and it crawls across almost everything.
And this is the kudzu that was...
This is the kudzu area. And all of this was in kudzu. Every bit of this was in kudzu.
So it was hiding everything here?
Yes, and the body was found somewhere in this area, maybe near that tree stump.
The body was so badly decomposed, it was hard to tell how long it had been there. One thing was very clear, though. There was almost no way that this person just wandered off and somehow found themselves underneath these bushes and then somehow died.
They certainly have an indication that it's a female, but they're not positive that it's Karen Swift.
The body was found with just undergarments on.
Yes.
What does that tell you?
Well, it lets me know that she did not leave the house dressed like that.
The body is sent to the medical examiner, and dental records make the identification official. It is indeed Karen Swift.
We went to the home to make the death notification. And we told David that we had found Karen. And his very words were, "You found it." You know, and we all, like, "We found your wife, Karen. You found it."
I don't have any audio or statement that backs that up, but I don't know that that statement proves anything. I know that the officer was trying to make something of that, but it's, in my opinion, not an admission or anything other than you found it.
The 44-year-old's body was found near Bledsoe Cemetery, just 2 miles from her Dyer County home. Police identified Swift's body Sunday using dental records. They're not saying how she was murdered. No suspects have been named.
Maybe it was just my dad who sat me down and told me that they found my mom, but I remember my dad being kind of very calm. He explained it in a way of mom's not coming back home, and this is a new reality. And I think that he was trying to say it in the best way possible, but there's not really a best way possible to say that.
It was one of those days where you just go numb and you just cannot believe that this is what it came to and why.
I was very upset when her body was found because of the kids and also David. And he was wondering what in the world could have happened.
I thought maybe, maybe somebody saw her walking and, grabbed her or things like that. But the more I thought about it, I thought there had to be a little bit more to it.
The autopsy revealed that the cause of death was blunt force trauma to the head. One thing that we were not able to tell was whether there was strangulation involved.
Investigators may not be certain how, but they are now convinced Karen Swift was murdered. As they try to figure out who did it, what did they find under a spare tire? As investigators in Dyersburg look into what is now a murder case, they learn some messy details about Karen and David Swift's marriage. Remember, they had moved here to Tennessee from Pocahontas, Arkansas.
Karen and David met in Pocahontas. They got married in 1989. Karen and David had what could be best described as a tumultuous marriage.
I know that maybe there was some affairs going on in Arkansas.
He ended up having a marital affair with this lady, and a child was born as a result of that affair. And they divorced at that time.
For a lot of couples, that might have been the end. But David and Karen are able to reconcile. They're divorced for only about 7 months when they remarry in 2000 and continue raising their 2 sons together.
And so then David and Karen go on and have their daughters Ashley and Keely. Now, sometime in the mid-2000s, Karen has an affair. David finds out. He forgives her for this. They reportedly move on.
He decided to quickly move the family to Dyersburg.
So it's David and Karen living in the new house with 3 of their 4 younger children. The oldest son was now in college.
He felt like if they didn't get away from the problem they were having in Arkansas, their marriage would never work. And it did, I mean, they had got along for quite some time, and then things went from bad to worse.
That's because once the couple moves from Arkansas to Tennessee, more problems spring up. Karen makes new friends, and David and Karen have very different views about what happened next.
It didn't seem like David was happy with those friends, and they weren't especially happy with David either.
It was clear that once she started this friendship with these new friends, that she was moving away from David.
It was midnight. I heard her sneaking out of the house.
He talked about it in that police interview.
I've seen nights that she would speed down the drive and Ashley's chasing after her and stuff, not wanting her to leave, go out at night.
It did get to a point where I feel like there was a little bit of shift in my family, and my mom was going out more, which made me start to question why.
As investigators learn details about what was going on, questions are raised about the nature of David's behavior towards Karen and if his alleged behavior crossed a line.
When David got upset is when Karen would be absent from the house.
He wanted to know where she was.
He would wake up, she would be gone, and he would get out to see where she was at.
David might be following her, but to him, it made perfect sense. He told people he had reason to worry about her and their kids. And his attorney says he thought she might be cheating on him.
If it's late at night and your kids are in bed and you're home after a work day, you might understand why somebody would say, hey, what's going on? Or can I ask you some questions?
I think David just wanted his wife to be at home where she should be with him and the kids. She claimed it was controlling. I don't think so.
But Karen let it be known she had had enough. She wanted another divorce.
Karen wanted to file for divorce because she felt David was too controlling of her
Frankly, if we had to go to court, the inappropriate marital conduct would have been what I would refer to as kind of a stalkish behavior.
But Karen doesn't have enough money of her own to file for divorce, so her good friends, Bill and Kathy Bona, loan her the cash. Not only that, the Bonas say they gave Karen a second phone to use to get around her husband, to talk to her divorce lawyer.
Karen told me that she had a secondary phone, that the number that she was talking to me on was a secondary phone, and she did not want him to know that she was calling and talking to me about a potential divorce.
Investigators understand why they found those two smashed and discarded phones.
She was afraid to be present when he was served. It was a substantial amount of money that she was asking for, so I think that had a big impact on David when he received that.
And in the meantime, the couple continues to live together in the same house.
She was living downstairs, and David was sleeping upstairs.
I didn't notice anything different, you know. We all went about our business.
She chose to live in the home. And my take on it was that she wasn't afraid of him. She didn't ask for order or protection because there had been no issues of physical violence.
David continued to say things to Karen wanting to call the divorce off.
He wasn't happy about the divorce.
To prosecutors, the possible divorce and the issues in the marriage are reaching a boiling point.
I believe that he had the attitude they had reconciled before or had problems before, and perhaps they could just talk through it and continue on with their life.
And he said she wasn't having it. He said there was just no way.
Was it enough of a motive for murder? Investigators had some evidence, including those smashed cell phones found here. And there were those divorce papers that David seemed to have hidden under the spare tire in his car.
This here is not adding up, because if I'm getting a divorce, why do I need to hide them in a car, in the trunk, under a spare tire?
I don't have an explanation if he had just stuck them there or if he had inadvertently set them there.
It was only 20 days after she filed for divorce that Karen went missing.
To investigators, it's a lot of smoke. But the truth is, there is simply no hard evidence linking David Swift to the crime. And the district attorney general in office at the time is not willing to charge him.
I think he was concerned that you only get one chance to try the case.
For more than a decade, the town wonders, is there a killer walking free? Then in 2022, finally, an arrest. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. And I got a chance to talk to that man from behind bars. Did you ever feel like you had a cloud of suspicion over you? Am I talking with the killer? And another woman emerges with a harrowing account. How would what she says affect the Karen Swift case?
The night that Karen was last seen, she went to a Halloween party.
I mean, the body was here for a month.
Undetected.
They investigated and they investigated, and everyone was like, when are you going to find a suspect?
The story of the same man, but two different women. One of them killed, one of them claiming she was stalked.
And there he was, in my backyard, in the middle of the night. This is too much.
The exclusive interview you'll only see on 2020.
They told me that my dad got arrested, and in that moment I was like, for what?
How big a deal was this trial in Dyersburg?
This trial was huge.
They didn't compare the fingerprints. They had tunnel vision.
I'm sorry.
It's all right.
This is a man I was married to that I shouldn't have been afraid of. And why is this happening?
Today we've intensified our search. We have combed through the areas again.
Karen Swift is a 44-year-old housewife, mother of 4 in Dyersburg, Tennessee, and she disappears in October 2011. Her car turns up not far from her house.
Car was locked, secure. There was no signs of foul play in the vehicle.
It was puzzling. I really didn't know. I didn't know what to think.
So after Karen goes missing, the police talk to her husband, David.
I just ordered to come home.
And they learn that there are serious problems in the Swift marriage.
Well, have you filed for divorce?
She filed on the 5th.
6 weeks after she disappears.
The body was found somewhere in this area, maybe near that tree stump.
Karen Swift has been found. Police identified Swift's body using dental records.
For the Dyer County Sheriff's Office, this case turns into a murder investigation. But they don't have enough evidence against Karen Swift's husband, David, or anyone else for that matter, to make an arrest. For more than a decade, there seems to be a question that lingers in the air in this town. Will Karen Swift ever get justice?
When it didn't happen right away, it almost felt like that there was nobody trying.
Somebody did this, so who? I'm 100% sure David did not do this.
And we kept working this case. We never gave up on it. And there was always little bits and pieces that we could piece and put together.
David, anytime law enforcement or the DA's office reached out to him, he answered their questions. He cooperated because he wanted to find out what happened to his wife.
They investigated and they investigated, and everyone was like, when are you going to find a suspect? When are you going to charge someone?
So for 10 years, 11 years, it was the hot topic in town.
Became an election year issue about no swift justice.
And a lot of people were upset about Karen's case not being solved. It was always the number one thing that came up.
And in 2018, promising to look at the case again, Danny Goodman is elected as the new District Attorney General. Later, the sheriff hands the entire case file over to him.
And we, of course, had a regular caseload. It wasn't something that we could just drop our normal caseload and start going through.
By then, David Swift has left town. He has a whole new life and a new wife, Kelly Essman.
Single Christians, good news. At ChristianMingle.com.
I met David on Christian Mingle in January of 2014, and we dated for about 2.5 years, and then he moved to Alabama when we got married.
My relationship with my dad during this time period was very good. He made sure that we still had as normal as a childhood as we could, even into our teenage years, you know.
He did start telling me a little bit about Karen and the fact that she had come up missing. He actually asked me to run a background check on him, and the background check comes up clean. You know, none of the news stories showed that he was a person of interest. They didn't say that he was a suspect. It was okay.
I think they had a wonderful relationship. Everybody got along.
It may have started out that way, but Kelly says cracks started to form in the marriage over parenting issues. And she says David never wanted to discuss her concerns. Over the years, she says it grew worse and worse.
There were challenges, and with all blended families, there are, you know, and that's where it started going downhill. We both went to therapy. So I finally just decided I can't go back. This is too much. He finally said that he would file for divorce.
But they have no idea that back in Dyersburg, there's been a break in the Karen Swift investigation, thanks to something completely unrelated, the COVID pandemic.
It was actually good for this case, because at that time we were not allowed to have in-person court. We were not allowed to have jury trials, so we had a lot of time that was just downtime in the office.
We were alone in the office for, I want to say it was around 6 weeks. Looked at every page that was compiled by the Sheriff's Department.
And that's how the case basically was rejuvenated, and we started back with a lot more detail looking into it.
We just basically came to the same conclusion that, yes, David Swift did it.
We noticed maybe that there were a few things that we would like to have to prosecute the case that were not there.
In particular, they say they want information stored on Karen Swift's cell phones, found smashed not far from her home. After a year of trying, experts can't recover that data, but prosecutors say they do come up with more digital evidence from David Swift's computer.
In the days and weeks after Karen vanished, they found that her husband had been visiting all of these multiple dating sites. Why is David looking at dating sites when she hasn't even been found?
David Swift's lawyer claims other people in the house may have been using that computer and accessing those sites. The prosecutors decide they have enough to take the case to a grand jury. David Swift is indicted.
We would never take a case to trial that we did not feel like we could be successful with prosecution. And at that point, we felt that we could.
An arrest has finally been made in the 2011 murder of Karen Swift.
David Swift was arrested today in Alabama, where he was living with his new wife.
David Swift is charged with premeditated first-degree murder.
He was shocked.
Swift is brought back to Tennessee, where he later pleads not guilty to first and second-degree murder and manslaughter. The sheriff posts on Facebook, "Today is a good day for law enforcement." David was always a suspect because all the evidence points to him.
Certainly it was enough evidence to take him into custody and bring it to trial.
Every rumor, every piece of information that came in, we followed up. No one else had a motive. No one else had the opportunity, and he had all of those things.
They told me that my dad got arrested, and in that moment I was like, for what?
What could they possibly have that they arrested him for? Something that happened so long ago.
I think they just wanted to make an arrest to say, we got somebody, because they were getting so much flack from people.
There was nothing groundbreaking, no scientific evidence or anything other than what was in the file. Now, I'm not saying that Danny Goodman or his office did anything unethical or improper, but sometimes when pressure is applied or pressure is present in a situation, decisions get made, and we just disagreed with his decision to charge David Swift.
I remember getting that first phone call from him after he was in the jail, and I remember his first words weren't, you know, they weren't about him, they were about us, and that everything was going to be okay.
I spoke to David Swift in a jailhouse interview. David, because this is the moment to clear the record, did you kill your wife?
No, absolutely not. She wasn't afraid of me one bit. We never had no domestics, no violence.
Because of the pending criminal charges, Swift says he couldn't talk about the details of the case, but he denied any violence in the marriage. So you said no domestics, meaning you never hurt Karen?
Never.
Never raised a hand to her?
And on no female, ever. And I sure wouldn't do it to my wife or the mother of my children. But, you know, I loved her. And I still love, you know, her today.
But before he goes on trial, accused of killing Karen, a truly shocking development. New details emerge about David Swift's alleged behavior with another woman, and he faces another criminal charge. Weeks after David Swift is arrested and charged with his wife Karen's murder, he's released after posting a $200,000 bond. But in a truly wild turn of events, Swift's legal troubles follow him home to Alabama, where he faces accusations of stalking, this time from his estranged second wife, Kelly Essman.
I was not afraid of David during the marriage. Towards the end of my marriage, I was not necessarily afraid of him. After I separated, there were periods of time when he would call me asking me, where are you going? I would tell him Hobby Lobby or, just Target or whatever. And he always seemed to be calling exactly when I would be going to that place.
After David's arrest, Kelly claims she found proof that she was being followed and filed for an emergency restraining order.
Kelly alleges that in the midst of all of this turmoil with David, that she came into some information that he actually had purchased a tracking device.
And right then I knew. That's how he knew where I was going. So I knew there's a tracking device somewhere on my car. And we did find the tracking device.
Kelly also claims in her motion that David started reaching out to her, sending repeated messages via text and email.
I repeatedly asked him to stop. It started with us trying to work out the details of the divorce, but it turned into a lot of random harassing emails on various topics.
Kelly files for that emergency restraining order, reporting that she was afraid for her safety, that she believes she may be in danger, and that David's stalking and harassment had become egregious. The judge made no findings on those claims, but the restraining order was granted.
I wanted him to leave me alone. That's all I wanted, just leave me alone.
Even with this new wife that he had and got a divorce, his MO was the same, following her around there in Alabama.
Karen and her friends and family said that David often would follow Karen around, that he was monitoring where she was at, that David would call her.
He even told us he followed her to a local store and got into the back of the car.
As for Kelly, she filed a police report after she claimed David's alleged harassment continued. In coordination with Alabama authorities, investigators back in Tennessee check up on what David Swift has been doing.
When he was put on a bond, the judge allowed an ankle monitor to be put on him. That brought to light data showing that he had been to her house on several occasions and following her.
And the sergeant calls me, and I'm like, how's that possible? That he knew where I was going. And he said that we think he's got a tracking device on your car. And I'm like, again?
Police pore over Kelly's car looking for a tracking device. They don't find one, but Kelly says she does find something chilling on her security camera system, which 2020 was able to obtain.
I pulled up the feed from that night, and there he was in my backyard in the middle of the night. He had to drive 40 minutes one way to get to my house. And that one of the times he saw him at my house was in the middle of the night for an hour and a half. When I see the video, that's when I become very confused, fearful. And why is this happening? Why is he doing it? I didn't give him any reason to. This is a man I was married to. That I shouldn't have been afraid of.
David's charged with felony stalking in Alabama, and his bond in the Karen Johnson Swift murder case was revoked.
Things moved pretty quickly after that. After they got the indictment, they arrested David Swift. There are pictures of him getting in the car.
With his bond revoked, Swift is brought into custody and sent to Tennessee.
He's been charged with stalking down there. They're going to handle those charges once we dissolve this case here.
David Swift has yet to enter a plea to the stalking charge. His lawyer handling the case hasn't responded to 2020's request for comment. With Swift sitting in jail, attention turns back to his fast-approaching trial for Karen's murder. The case is big news in a small town. And both the prosecution and the defense are about to pull back the curtain on the Swifts' private lives.
Did anyone have no clothes on in the hot tub?
What exactly was going on at those hot tub parties? And what did they have to do with Karen's case?
A man accused of killing his wife more than a decade ago is back in Tennessee. We'll bring you inside of the courtroom as both sides prepare for trial.
News of David Swift's trial puts Dyersburg on the map in a way locals have never seen.
When there was finally an arrest in Karen's case, you had TV crews, newsprint media, all these people flooding in to Dyersburg.
How big a deal was this trial in Dyersburg?
This trial was huge. It was high profile. It's been the #1 trial of public interest in Dyersburg.
Interestingly, Karen Swift's murder trial doesn't take place here in Dyer County, Tennessee. Instead, a judge issues a change of venue, and David Swift is tried for murder 50 miles from here in Weakley County, Tennessee. As opening statements begin, the prosecution makes it clear that there is no smoking gun against David Swift.
You are not going to see fingerprint analysis. You're not going to see ballistic testing. We will, however, give you several pieces of a puzzle. And when we get through giving you all of those, we think that we're going to have a complete picture. We knew that a jury would want to see some type of weapon that was used for the murder. And it was just, we were never going to have that in this case.
But the prosecution lays out their theory that David Swift didn't actually need a weapon.
We submit that the defendant dragged her to the garage. Once inside the garage, the defendant stomped Karen on her head with such violence that it caved her skull in.
I was shocked when I heard that because I had not heard that before, and I'm like, okay, we'll see the evidence of that.
The autopsy showed that there was starburst fracturing on the left side, which indicated that her head was against something solid and then was struck from the other side. And our theory is that solid object was the concrete in the garage.
The defense counters that the investigators never found any evidence in the garage to back up this theory.
So you actually walked around the garage and looked at it when you first went out there with Mr. Swift?
Yes, sir.
All right. You didn't see any blood or smell of strong bleach, did you?
I did not.
The prosecution then switches gears to focus on Karen's abandoned car. Remember, investigators say that her tire appeared to have been deliberately punctured.
The flat tire, I think, is one of the more significant pieces of the puzzle in this case.
One thing I did observe was a screw that was in groove number 3. The screw was slightly below the tread surface.
And does that have any significance to you in your examination?
Yes. When a object punctures the tire in the tread area, it will actually rebound as it goes through the tire because of the elastic nature and the structure of the tire.
Could you imagine a situation where a screw entered the tire in service like this, where it ran over an object, perhaps a pebble or a stone, that could have forced the screw head beneath the tread surface?
Well, I wouldn't say it's impossible, but I would say extremely improbable.
It was their contention that the tire was intentionally deflated as a ruse to make people believe that Karen had actually suffered from a flat tire, and that's why her car was there, when in fact that was not the case.
But the defense brings in their own expert, who testifies that the screw could have accidentally punctured that tire.
There's other vehicles could kick up screws or nails. You know, say you're following a construction vehicle and some are on the back of the trailer and they bounce off and you just happen to be behind it. Who knows what angle it's going to strike your tire at as you're going down the roadway.
My expert actually did test on a light tire on a similar wheel and, you know, tried to recreate that and explained it to the jury. And I think the jury has to decide which they believe.
The prosecution also calls Karen's friends, Bill and Kathy Bona, to the stand to testify about how they viewed Karen and David's relationship.
She finally started taking action when she started getting the confidence to say, I'm just done. I can't do this anymore. And the controlling and accusations, she was ready to be done with the marriage because she needed to get out.
The defense argues that Karen had full control of everything she did.
She did the behavior she wanted to, and that's just a reality. And as we move on closer to the time she got a divorce, she would come and go as she wished.
Prosecution asked the Bonas about Kathy's 40th birthday celebration, where they hosted an after party with a group of their friends, which included the use of their hot tub. The Bonas testified that this party led to a confrontation with David Swift.
How were people dressed?
Some people had swimsuits, a couple people did not.
When you say they did not, did they have anything on?
No.
They were nude?
Yes.
Do you know if Miss Swift was in the hot tub?
She was, yes. I mean, I don't remember specifically seeing her, but she enjoyed being in the hot tub when she came over, in the wintertime when it was cold, so I'm sure she was.
Was Mr. Swift present that night?
He wasn't at first, and he wasn't invited, and he wasn't welcome. And Mr. Swift burst into the door, there and startled me and asked where Karen was.
What was his demeanor at that time?
He was agitated, I would say, but I would also say it really caught me off guard. I thought, I don't like this, and I went to get out of the chair to go, ask him to leave, basically, and he came down the stairs and left.
How did he appear when he came down, as far as his attitude and demeanor?
I mean, he came down the stairs and left abruptly and left through the door, quickly enough where I couldn't even really get a word in edgewise.
The prosecution plays David's full police interview in court, where he confirmed that he would sometimes follow Karen to the Bonas house.
Karen started sneaking out of the house, and she would go to be with Kathy and Bill.
And when you say go to be with them, what do you mean, go to party with them,
go party and naked in the hot tub in the backyard?
There was a lot of information about the hot tub parties and all of that, so it kind of verified the rumors that were going around that something somewhat wild was going on.
And there is key testimony still ahead as one emotional witness makes waves.
We're going to call you next witness. Ashley Swift.
And David's own daughter prepares to testify at her father's trial. What will she say when she takes the stand? Inside the Weakley County Courthouse, attorney Daniel Taylor dives into one of the most memorable cases of his career.
I've been a trial lawyer for 32 years, and it's the most media attention on any particular case that I've had. This is 2011. After all those years, there's been no scientific breakthrough or anything. There's been nothing new that's come in or anything. After all this time, there was a charge.
The defense contends that the reason David would follow Karen was because he was worried about what was going on at those hot tub parties.
There were issues about conduct and things that were going on, adult parties, things about hot tub parties, and just some things that maybe some others considered not appropriate.
They call her friend, Robin Alford, who testifies that she saw Karen passed out at Kathy Bona's birthday party.
Did you see Karen Swift leave the hot tub and go into the house?
I did. I witnessed her get up. She looked to me as if she was hot and woozy kind of feeling when I walked in, and I witnessed her laying on the floor.
Did you, were you aware whether or not when you first met the Swifts that they drank alcohol or not?
Karen never drank before she come to Dyersburg, never. And I don't think that she could handle her alcohol at all.
The defense points out that in his police interview, David did express concern for Karen's welfare.
I'd have to go get her and drive her home. They called me. And so I was always concerned and worried about her. There was Several times I found her in compromising situations. And I did get upset. I said, Karen, please, why are you doing this?
The defense was simple. David Swift did not kill Karen Swift. They said it could have been a random act by somebody who was just passing by, either in a car or on foot.
They didn't compare the fingerprints. They just tested David Swift. They had tunnel vision.
The defense also argues that David had a serious knee injury affecting his mobility, so he wouldn't have been physically able to dispose of Karen's body.
They said he had this injured leg, so he could not have possibly picked her up and placed her in the cemetery.
Did you notice anything about his leg or how he was walking?
He had a knee brace on and he had crutches.
Multiple witnesses for the prosecution dispute the seriousness of David's knee injury.
Was he using crutches?
I've never seen no crutches on Saturday.
Did he appear to be injured in any way?
You could see him using his crutches while he was talking about it. After he got done talking and they went in the house, he just walked like he didn't need crutches anymore. I thought that was strange.
Even if he is faking it, it's still there's a visual there. The jury is repeatedly seeing people get on the stand and say, yes, I saw him on these crutches. Yes, I saw him on these crutches.
The defense also disagrees with the prosecution's account of what happened inside the Swift home on the night of Karen's murder.
So part of the prosecution's theory of the case was that David comes into Karen's room, takes Ashley, the daughter, out of the bed and goes and puts her in bed with the sister Keely. He returns to the room and Karen is either asleep or in a very incapacitated state, and then something happens where he ends her life.
Then the defense calls an essential witness to challenge that theory.
Would you tell everybody your name?
Ashley Swift. I was nervous to go on the stand, and they decided to call me early. And so in that moment, I did freak out a little bit just because I hadn't mentally prepared myself.
Ashley, who was only 9 years old when she saw her mom for the last time, describes what she remembers about the hours before Karen disappeared.
You're not used to testifying, so let me just ask you a few things, okay?
Okay.
When your mother picked you up, did she pick you up in her car?
She did.
And where did y'all go after that?
We went home, back to our house where my sister and my dad were.
And do you recall getting out of the car or going to the house? Do you recall everything about that night?
Yeah, we came into the house and we went to sleep in her bedroom.
I didn't really prepare for trial. Whatever was asked was what was asked, and however I answered was however I answered, and I told the truth in everything that I said.
And Ashley testifies that it wasn't her father who moved her from the bed that fateful night.
Oh, I know it was my mother.
How do you know that?
It's instinct to know your mother versus somebody else. You have that bond with that person and you know who it is.
But you didn't actually see her?
No, but I felt her.
There were some times during my testimony where they were trying to, I think, trick me into thinking that what I felt and knew was something else, and I made sure to own that. It was my testimony.
So you actually don't know for sure then, do you?
I mean, I have a pretty good instinct to feel what my mother feels like.
Seeing his oldest daughter take the stand becomes a visibly emotional ordeal for David.
I know that it was physically tough, and he knew it was difficult being asked questions.
And finally, after 2 weeks of heated exchanges and moving testimony, there are fireworks inside the jury room where lines are drawn in the sand.
It was divided pretty much down the middle.
It was basically the guys against the girls.
As the courtroom holds its breath for a verdict.
After 6 days of emotionally charged testimony in David Swift's murder trial, it was time for the lawyers on both sides to make their final plea to the jury.
Karen and David Swift's marriage ended sometime around 3:30 a.m. on October 30th, 2011. Sadly, it didn't end the way Karen had envisioned it might when she filed for divorce earlier that month from David. My job in closing argument was to convince the jury that there was only one person that could have done this. And that's what I attempted to thread all the evidence together and present them with a coherent theory of what happened that evening.
There was only one person in the planet that could have killed Karen Swift, and it was David.
How do you think the prosecution did in presenting its case to the jurors?
I think that General Goodman had a very, very difficult case. It was an inherited case. It was very old evidence. I think that he did the absolute best that he could to try to bring justice to Karen Swift.
The prosecutor said that he would put the puzzle together, but the puzzle was incomplete. And so that's exactly what I argued. And that his version of the offense and what he claimed happened was incorrect or inconsistent with what was proven. There is no proof to support the state's theory in this case. You have heard all of my questions. You have heard all of the witnesses. The state said that this was a puzzle that they would put together for a complete picture. There is no complete picture.
In order to return a verdict, it is necessary that each juror agree thereto. Your verdict must be unanimous.
As it was going to the jury, we all kind of sat around and a bunch of family friends showed up, and we were sitting there trying to figure out, oh, what if the jury's saying this? What if they're saying that? But we really didn't know what was going on in that jury room.
We started deliberating. Why don't you think he's guilty? Why do you think he's guilty? We took an initial vote just to see where everybody was, and it was divided pretty much down the middle.
It was basically the guys against the girls.
According to juror David Liggins, some of those male jurors felt there just wasn't enough evidence to convict David Swift.
If you stomp somebody's head on concrete good enough to fracture her skull like it was fractured and busted, and then he can beat every law enforcement and science in the state, I don't believe that's possible this day and time. No physical evidence.
But for other jurors, they say David Swift's behavior towards Karen couldn't be ignored.
In my heart, I really thought he did something when he knew where she was at and what she was doing, because he was following her. That made me think that, yes, he did something.
As the jury was deliberating, things were very tense, and you could sense the tension minute by minute.
I actually was not surprised that the jury was deliberating as long as they did. Anytime you have a circumstantial case, you're going to have a lot of discussions, you're going to have a lot of opinions.
When the jury went out, it was tense on both sides. Both sides were just waiting. You have no choice other than to talk to your client, talk to his family. And so he obviously was nervous, and it could mean either him going home or either him staying, in custody.
After hours of fruitless deliberations, the jury tells the judge they were unable to reach a decision. He instructs them to keep trying.
After 10, 11 hours, you're getting tired.
Mentally exhausted. Everybody was so tired.
They couldn't reach a decision, so they stayed and they went home, and then they came back.
It got a little heated, but anytime you got difference of opinions, it's eventually going to get a little heated.
Finally, after 2 days of deliberation, the jury announces it has reached a decision.
When we walked back in there, everybody was looking, of course. They're going to see if they can tell whether you voted not guilty or guilty. Anybody would have voted like we did. But I do remember looking out in the gallery.
I saw one lady, she was shaking, and the longer it took, it was obvious to me that she was becoming more nervous, and this was pretty much the scene inside the courthouse.
I just prayed we had done the right thing.
Madam Foreperson, has the jury reached a verdict in this case?
After 2 days of grueling deliberation, the jury has come back in David Swift's murder trial.
Has the jury reached a verdict in this case?
No, Your Honor.
Do you feel like that it is likely that the jury on continued deliberations will reach a verdict?
No, sir.
I think the best word to describe what happened as the verdicts were being read was shock.
Does the jury agree on the highest level of offense that the defendant is either guilty or not guilty?
Yes.
What is the verdict in that?
Not guilty.
The jury came back not guilty on first-degree murder, not guilty on second-degree murder, and they were hung on voluntary manslaughter.
Do you all believe that the jury is hopelessly deadlocked with respect to the charge of voluntary manslaughter? I see everybody nodding their head yes.
I was just sitting there in the chair. I was just kind of just numb. I was like, I can't believe this. We spent all this time presenting the facts, and apparently they just didn't get it. The jury didn't get it.
The first two officers on the scene said that they did walk into the garage that day. I'm sorry, you could smell bleach if he had bleach in there. You could see the blood if he ain't cleaned it up yet. When they gave me a scenario, that's where he done it. And then they can't find nothing. That ended the case for me.
I think it stopped at manslaughter because I felt like he did something. In my heart, I really thought he did something.
When the verdict came in, your reaction?
Honestly, I really was not surprised. Reasonable doubt was everywhere.
I think the way that the prosecution laid it out was the only person that could have done it was David Swift. They didn't present proof that said that it was David Swift. If I removed myself and my knowledge of the case, and I was an independent person, I would have had to have rendered a verdict of not guilty.
One detail that the prosecution wasn't allowed to introduce at trial, David's indictment for allegedly stalking his second wife, Kelly. But some jurors say hearing about that accusation wouldn't have made a difference.
The only thing, in my opinion, that would have changed my outcome was the scenario the prosecution gave. Yes, that woman was beat to death, but they can't convince me that David done it.
Let me take you to the penultimate moment, which is what was it like to hear the jury say not guilty?
Man, it was great. I thought, finally, it was overwhelming.
Although he was acquitted of murdering Karen, David Swift's legal ordeal is far from over. He's still facing that charge of stalking his second wife and remains in jail as he faces retrial on that voluntary manslaughter charge.
I'm disappointed that the jury didn't reach a decision that I thought they should as to all the offenses. And that's the jury system. And that's why we'll have a retrial.
We were confident going into the first trial. We're equally confident for a second trial. And I think that it's something that we can't give up on. It's just something that we have an obligation to do.
I'm not really sure what you expect to get out of a retrial when we've already seen the presentation of all this evidence before, and everybody has pretty much already formed a decision on it.
And today, 13 years after her mother disappeared, Ashley Swift, Karen and David's daughter, still steadfastly believes in her father's innocence.
Moving forward, I'm not exactly 100% sure what's going to happen. I hope that we can get my dad home soon. He is currently sitting in jail for something that, he shouldn't even be in jail for.
David has missed out on a lot of special things. He has missed the birth of a grandchild, his daughter's graduation from dental hygiene school, his oldest daughter, Ashley. He has missed Keely graduating high school.
What does justice for Karen Swift look like?
I think that in a situation like this, I think that we have to unfortunately reconcile with the fact that there may not be justice.
I will always remember Karen, and I think everybody should remember Karen by her love for children, that she was a great mother and she was a great friend.
I think one of the things I want people to know most about my mom is she was a very caring and nurturing person, and she would do anything for any of us kids or my dad. I would love to have my dad around again and, really fight for justice for my mom.
That's our program for tonight. I'm David Muir.
And I'm Deborah Roberts. From all of us here at 2020 and ABC News, good night.
Tonight, a beloved firefighter gunned down in his very own driveway.
But does the evidence to convict someone all come down to a single deleted phone call? A brand new 2020 begins right now.
Get the med kit. He's still got a pulse.
Who would want Robbie dead? That was the million-dollar question.
Robbie.
He's got a fireman's shirt on.
I'm in panic. Please save my husband.
He's done, dude. Damn it!
Oh, God, no.
Is he alive? No, he's not. Oh, my God.
Robbie Doerr pulls into this driveway. He's ambushed and gunned down.
So that's the last image they got, is Robbie laying there dead on the sidewalk.
I don't know I know what happened to Rob in my driveway, but I don't know who did it.
They've got it all wrong. They're wasting their time.
Hey, Andy. Do you know something that we don't?
You're pulling into the house after the funeral.
Right.
Lights and sirens, guns out.
Dogs barking.
This is what you watch on TV. You watch this happen to people on TV, not to your family.
Is that a normal thing around here that people delete phone calls and messages unless you have something to hide?
Exactly.
And just when you thought you heard the most shocking part, there was another part coming.
Just a few minutes ago.
Is the sailor still there?
No, I didn't see anybody.
Can you describe to me the night of that shooting?
I was getting ready to cook pork chops. I had turned the oven on. A few minutes later, I saw the truck lights come into the driveway. Sometimes I would go greet Robbie, and sometimes I didn't. It felt like it was just like a minute later. I hear these popping noises. It almost sounds like fireworks, but not fireworks.
Is this your husband?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm in panic because he's breathing. He's alive. Please save my husband.
Yeah, his name is Robert Doerr. He's a firefighter.
Elizabeth Fox Doerr, also known as Becky, is married to 51-year-old Robbie Doerr. He's a respected veteran firefighter. He's been at the Evansville, Indiana Fire Department for 28 years, works out of Station 1.
I'm up here at the intersection of Colorado and Oakley.
The body camera footage from the scene is unfolding in real time, and it's particularly raw and graphic.
Get the med kit. He's still got a pulse.
Gosh.
He's starting compressions now. Stay with me, stay with me. Heart's still pumping.
Some of Robbie's fellow firefighters arrive at the scene, and they're unaware of what they're walking into.
What the I just realized who it is.
Robbie! Robbie!
Connect electrodes.
Just flush it.
And some cannot contain their anguish.
Robbie! Robbie! He's done, dude. Damn it!
Oh, God, no. Oh.
Damn it!
Does he know him? I assume it's a small department, man.
He's got a fireman's shirt on.
Robbie's colleagues, in utter disbelief, are trying to collect themselves.
Let's get them up out of here.
Hey, man, let's go back this way. Come on.
Let's go back.
I know, man. I don't want to be rude or disrespectful, but we got to get the fire out of here because that's one of theirs.
Evansville police are investigating a deadly shooting.
One person was shot and killed here tonight, and police still looking for a suspect.
Normally, the media will stage in a certain area. Police officers will chat with us, will tell us a little bit about what's going on. That didn't happen that night, so I knew that this was a big deal.
Police say that just after 7 o'clock tonight, they had several calls come in reporting shots fired. They do know who the victim is, but they are not releasing his name just yet.
We were just hearing that night that it was a firefighter, and by the amount of firefighters showing up to the scene kind of confirmed to us this is a first responder.
Becky calls her oldest son, Nathan, to come and be by her side.
It's my dad. I need to get down there.
I understand. You're not going through this crime scene.
Okay, well then get my mother down here. Her name is Elizabeth Dorr.
Nathan is allowed on the scene, and he calls Becky's youngest son, Taylor, who then was 21, and is living at the house.
He was spam texting me, spam calling me, and he was like, you need to get home, and now Rob's been shot. I was like, is he okay? He was like, I don't know, Taylor, get home.
Where's my mom?
I was probably there within a minute or two. I flew down the road. Really didn't feel right. I was stunned, I feel like, the whole time.
Follow me. Okay, let's go.
And we walked up to the house.
Still, everything's being investigated.
Is he alive?
No.
Oh my God.
The first thing I did was I called out my mom's name, and I ran over to her and we just started crying together.
How many times had Rob been shot?
At that point, I did not know.
But I imagine it was a pretty messy scene.
Yeah, 3 or 4 times, but I honestly don't know.
Can I get your name real quick?
The first thing you get to a scene, you want to talk to a witness who possibly saw it, and you do a canvass of the area as well.
You said you heard about 6 to 8 shots? Yeah.
I didn't know if somebody was going around shooting or something, so I turned all my lights off.
A gunman could be on the loose, and Becky says she was scared.
I was afraid to go out at first because I didn't know if there was somebody out there.
You said he doesn't have any enemies.
He's a firefighter.
He's a recluse. Whenever he goes to the fire station, he goes to his little room. He stays there until he's needed.
The thing is, this is very odd. We gotta look at all angles of everything. Where's his daughter?
She's probably
Is that the daughter?
Robbie's adult daughter, Lindsay Griffin, is also notified. Like many others arriving at the scene, she is unprepared for what she's about to see.
He was my best friend. All I could think about was I needed to be next to my dad. Like, my dad was alone on that concrete. He didn't have me. I needed to be with him.
Who shot him? I have no idea. No. I want my dad.
You go out there, okay?
Why?
You can't.
They wouldn't even let me out there with him.
As Robbie is lying there, heartbroken family members and colleagues want to be near him, but Evansville police cannot allow their crime scene to be entered.
I've already told fire very respectfully that they have to stay outside the tape.
The ones that were called to the scene, they all knew Robbie. That's the last image they got, is Robbie laying there dead on the sidewalk.
Did the people who treated him actually know him?
Oh, yeah.
When a member of the service, police officer, or fireman has been killed, you step outside your personal attachment to the case, then you protect the integrity of the crime scene, that you were able to get justice for that person who was the victim.
They are turning their focus to gathering clues and asking questions.
That's not a casing, that's an actual round. That's a round, yeah.
The crime scene was very chaotic.
We found no shell casings.
Right away, there weren't any real solid leads.
I want to say I'm very, very little.
Robbie's lived in his town his whole life. He's a firefighter for nearly 30 years. Who would want Robbie dead?
That was the million-dollar question that nobody could think of anybody.
It just didn't make sense.
Robbie Dorr was shot and killed outside his Oakley Street home.
This is a bad nightmare. Didn't have an enemy in the world. Everybody loved him.
Evansville police are still searching for a suspect. They are asking anyone with information, please give them a call.
The first step is trying to figure out what happened and the main players involved.
The people who live on that street were telling me, I can't believe this happened here. Yes, we do have crime in Evansville, but nothing like this.
51-year-old Robbie Doer was one of Evansville's bravest, a second-generation firefighter who'd served his hometown for nearly 3 decades.
And so what did Robbie do?
Robbie rode on the back. He enjoyed taking the new guys in, showing them the ropes, showing them, what to look for, what to do in a fire.
And so when you ride in the back, you get to talk and guide the newer guys.
Yes.
Life sucks without him. Sorry, I'm trying not to cry. That was my best friend, and now he's never gonna meet his grandson. My aunt sent me a picture of my dad when he was a little kid, and him and my son are identical. And I mean identical.
Robbie was a devoted father, husband, grandfather, and firefighter. And in addition to all those roles, he took on another. He was working full-time at the fast food chain Taco John's.
You would think that being a firefighter would be enough.
Firefighting is not a career you're gonna get rich at. Firefighters only work 10 days a month. 20 idle days cost a lot of money.
I quit my job to go be a general manager at Taco John's, and that's how I met Rob. Jokester that he was, always was there to make me laugh when I was struggling at the drive-thru.
Robbie and Becky had known each other for 11 years before they started dating.
Robbie would have done anything in the world for her.
Rob was going to be the person that gave my mom a consistent life.
Who did you grow up with? You were in the foster system?
I was in the foster system till I was 4. Went from one foster home to another.
At the age of 4, Becky is adopted into the Fox family, as was Mandy Fillmore.
You were 2.5, she was 4. Tell me about your big sister growing up.
We played, we traded stickers, we jumped on the trampoline, swam, got in trouble.
My father was a dentist. My mother was a dental hygienist, but she decided to stay at home with us girls and take care of us. They had a Christian handbell group called the Melody Bells.
You performed at the White House.
We sure did. We did twice. For Ronald Reagan for their Christmas party and for George W. Bush Sr. for their Christmas party.
This is you?
That one's me, and that's Becky. That was at the 4-H fair. That one's Taylor. I think it's some baby shark.
How many times have you been married?
6.
Were any of them good decisions?
The 6th.
Robbie.
Yep. He would do anything for me. He was my best friend.
Rob is a great guy, so I'm thinking, okay, she's done. This is the one. This is the one that's finally gonna work. They got engaged and they planned the wedding about 2 months out.
He treated me like nobody had ever treated me before. Our biggest disagreement was he wanted me to quit working. And I wanted to work. But with him working both jobs, when he was off, he didn't want to worry about my schedule. And I'm like, well, but I really would like to work. He goes, well, maybe someday. I'm like, you keep saying that, but, I can work.
Robbie was the type of person who always wanted people smiling. He would do whatever he could to make somebody happy.
Just kind of a sensitive soul?
Yeah.
Days after the murder, police spoke with Robbie's friend, Larry Wilt, who outlined how Robbie says he wanted to give Becky everything. Even, Larry worried, to his own detriment.
The guy had thousands of dollars in his safe before he got with Becky. All he wanted to do was make Becky happy, and it whatever it costs.
She found a car that she had to have. He managed to get that for her. He borrowed money for them to go down to Panama City to get married.
Larry says the little things really started adding up for Robbie.
Added to his household, so his water went up. His electric went up. Everybody was on his cell phone plan.
Everybody's on his cell phone plan?
I know Robbie borrowed the money from his dad.
Was your dad the kind of person who would get really excited about somebody new and then jump to a proposal and marriage?
I mean, you kind of have to think he was single for 10 years. So, I mean, in my eyes, he just wanted to be loved. And so when he got that attention, then yeah.
At this point, detectives want to learn more about his relationships and the final hours of his life.
Robert Dorr walked into an ambush. What's going on in his world that would have caused this to come to his own home in his driveway? It was an assassination.
The medical examiner discovered that Robbie was actually hit with 2 different types of projectiles. There's only a few types of weapons in the world that can shoot both shotgun and pistol ammunition. A Taurus judge is actually one of the types of firearms that shoots both shotgun as well as solid projectiles.
The big mistake that the perpetrator made is by using a weapon that is easily identifiable.
The detectives did a search for any stolen guns in the area. During that search, we found a pawn shop close by where a Taurus judge was stolen.
Police are now on the hunt for that stolen Taurus judge handgun and any more evidence that may start connecting some dots.
You're looking for anything that might help you to find out what's going on in Robert's life.
Inside of the home, investigators found a 9-page letter.
Robbie Dorr was a first responder here at the Evansville Fire Department, where he worked for nearly 30 years. And for 25 of those years, he worked at this station. For most of that time, his best friend was another firefighter named Larry Wilt.
And so this was one of the busiest fire stations,
This
right?
is one of the busiest fire stations. The engine makes over 2,000 runs out of here, which for a city the size of Evansville,
it's a lot.
It's a lot. Robbie loved it. So he wanted to stay busy, 24 hours here, then 8 hours at Taco John's, and then, whatever else he was doing.
Robbie was a very, very hard worker, but his love life was a little bit tangled.
We're gone for 24 hours. So it makes it harder on family life.
In Becky and Robbie's situation, they were building on experiences and previous marriages they'd been involved in, knowing what they wanted and what they didn't want.
My dad seemed very happy at first. But then he started to feel insecure. He started to think she was cheating on him because he was like, she always deletes her text messages. Like, she never lets me see her phone.
Turns out Robbie put some of his concerns on paper in a 9-page letter he wrote to Becky a couple of months before they planned to get married.
In that letter, in his own handwriting, he's saying there was a problem.
Can't remember the last time you approached me to hug or kiss me. I wish I could put that smile back on your face and make you look happy. You brought me out of the darkness and made life worth living. I wish I had the money to take you everywhere you want to go. I want to get the house all fixed up to something you like. I want you to have friends, and I swear I will not accuse you of cheating on me ever again. I never want to lose you.
Why was Rob so concerned that you would cheat on him?
He'd been cheated on from my understanding, but so had I. I tried to reassure him that that's just not going to happen.
Had you ever cheated on your previous husbands?
No. Never. There was a friend that actually was the very first person my parents ever let me go out with. He would reach out to me, but just wanted to know if I was doing okay. I told Rob about it, and he felt that maybe something would be rekindled.
Okay. Did you see this guy?
No.
Becky's sister Mandy tells me that when it comes to love, they both tend to make miscalculations.
Here's the deal. If anything, if we make bad decisions, we make them based in love.
You and Becky?
We make bad decisions trying to love people.
Like the mistakes have been because you've loved people?
Yes. Yes.
You fall in love easily?
No, I wouldn't say so. I mean, I guess it depends on the person.
But in May of 2018, Mandy quickly fell for a charismatic stranger named Larry Richmond Sr.
Tell me the story of how you met Larry.
I was working at the Dollar General, and he came in, and when he handed me the money, he made sure to touch my hand and like look me in the eyes and make it clear that he enjoyed what he was looking at.
And he's charming too in person, isn't he?
Very much so.
A few months after Larry met Mandy, he moves into her home. Mandy's daughter, Mary, was also living at the house.
Larry was always really gentle with my mom. I don't think I've ever seen her happier.
Tell me who Larry is.
We met him on Thanksgiving of 2018. Rob and I went out with them 3, maybe 4 times.
What was your impression of Larry when you had dinner with him?
When we first met him, he seemed okay.
Did you communicate with Larry Sr. outside of these double dates?
Only when he would call me and ask me where Rob was. But I always let Rob know when he had called.
What else did you talk about when you spoke?
He wanted to know what me and Rob did to have fun when we had our date nights. Then another phone conversation was because he wanted to know what Rob did, how he went about asking for my dad's blessing for asking Mandy to marry him.
Larry Richmond Sr., at the age of 17, was convicted of murder, spent 22 years in prison, was released in 2018, out on his own.
Did you know at the time that he had been convicted of shooting a 7-year-old man and killing him?
No.
He spent like 2 decades in prison.
No, knew nothing about that.
Didn't know anything about his criminal past?
No. My sister said that he had been in trouble before, but that he was on the right track.
She brought that man to a Christian household and sat him down at a long dining room table and had dinner with everybody, and didn't tell a single person that he had just gotten out of prison for murder.
How quickly into dating him did you know that Larry had spent nearly 2 decades in prison
He
for
told me
murder?
immediately.
Immediately?
Immediately. He presented it like it was an accident. He just wanted to live a normal life and stay out of jail.
While Larry seemed to play down his crime to Mandy, in reality, he had pleaded guilty to knowingly killing another person.
At first I was like, oh, that's not great. But then slowly, my mom convinced us. She was like, he's a changed man. He was very warm. He was very nice.
Meanwhile, it has been 6 days since Robbie was gunned down. The family, Becky, Mandy, Larry, and large numbers of the community are now gathered to lay Robbie to rest.
We actually live streamed it on our website for our viewers to watch because there was such a community interest in this story.
There were so many people that I had never met, so many people that showed up.
This legacy of integrity is what the foundation of the fire department is working on.
This service today in no way fully be right or have the fullest length of time and respect to honor Robbie.
Did you speak at the funeral?
Yes.
He never backed down to trade shifts with anyone if they needed anything for their families. Lindsay, when you were born, I seen a smile on that man I never thought I would see again. Robbie spoke often of not wanting to spend his life alone. Becky, you made his life whole. Resty's a brother. We'll take it from here.
Then, in a dramatic turn, just minutes after they pay their final respects to Robbie, police move in on 2 leads.
So Larry was arrested when you came back from the funeral?
Yes, and they took me away in handcuffs too.
Hey, Mandy, do you know something that we don't?
It was a solemn farewell for firefighter Robert Dorr. His funeral comes less than a week after he was shot and killed outside his home.
The funeral was hard. I will never forget the bells. I will never forget all of the speeches that were said. I can't listen to bagpipes anymore. I can't. I just can't listen to him. The moment that they handed me his helmet, I lost it. But it was absolutely amazing to see how many people were there.
But a discovery by the police turns this day from somber to suspect.
So you're pulling into the house after the funeral.
Right.
Lights and sirens, guns out.
Dogs barking.
You're getting cuffed and taken in. That must have been terrifying.
It was.
Put your hands behind your back.
Police pulled Mandy and Larry over for a traffic violation, but there's more to the story.
So a traffic violation leads to this?
So after doing an autopsy, police learned that a Torres Judge revolver possibly had been used to shoot and kill Robbie Dorr, which just so happens to be the same style of gun that was stolen from a pawn shop in Evansville.
So when they looked at the employees at that pawn shop, they realized that Larry Richmond Jr. was an employee there. And they put two and two together that Larry Richmond Jr. was Larry Richmond Sr.'s son.
All right, there you go.
Larry Richmond Jr. is a 23-year-old Evansville native. As a child, his time with his father was limited to prison visits, and now after years of being apart, Jr. and Sr. are reconnecting.
So Larry Jr. is associated with a gun we think might be the murder weapon. That's a big step in the investigation.
Larry Richmond Sr. was taken in at the same time as Mandy, and the same time that Larry Richmond Jr. was.
Well, Larry, while we've got everybody, it's not just you down here. Obviously, we're looking into the Robert Dorr situation. He was gunned down in his driveway.
What's that got to do with me?
Well, it has to do with everybody in the family. We're just trying to get everybody in here to see if there's just anything that can help us with this investigation. Do you wish to talk to me without a lawyer present?
I have no problem answering any of your questions. I will cooperate fully.
Okay.
But due to my past, I have been incarcerated.
Sure.
I am on probation. I don't need any problems.
Sure, no, I understand.
So if I'm not under arrest, please get a hold of him. I will come back down here and fully cooperate. No problems at all.
All we're trying to do is find out if you guys know anything that could help us find his killer.
I don't know nothing. We go out with him. We go out and drink. Outside of that there, I don't know nothing.
So he understands what you should and shouldn't do when you get arrested by the police. So he's going to say, no, I want the lawyer. And there's nothing wrong with that.
With police unable to further question Larry Sr., they talked to his fiancée, Mandy. Her brother-in-law, Robbie, is the victim.
Where were you at when Robbie was murdered?
I don't know exactly when it was. Can you tell me when it was?
Last Tuesday. Around 7 o'clock.
Yeah, I was home.
You were home?
We were all home. Your kids there? Was Larry there? Yeah, we were all there. We were all there.
Kids, Larry.
Mm-hmm.
Manny says he was with me the night of the murder. That's an alibi.
So another weird question or awkward question that we ask everybody. Do you own the firearm?
No.
You don't own the firearm?
No. I don't. What about Larry? Is Larry no more? He's not around. What about the gun that was found in the car? Officers found the gun in the car.
When the police pulled over Mandy and Larry Sr. earlier, they had found a gun hidden in the car. Now, it wasn't the murder weapon, but because of Larry's prior conviction, he's not allowed to possess a firearm.
You did not know there was a gun in the car? You all right?
So you pretty quickly understand that Larry is now a suspect.
Yeah, immediately.
Immediately.
Hey, Mandy. Do you know something that we don't?
I feel like I'm in the twilight zone. Does it feel like a betrayal? This is what you watch on TV. You watch this happen to people on TV, not to your family.
When they started to bring up this idea that Larry Richmond Sr. may have been involved, I think that was a situation for her that was very eye-opening and one of confusion, because she knew about Larry's past and she knew that he was trying to become a better person. At least that's what he was expressing to her.
Mandy is clearly in shock, but she's insistent that her fiancé is not involved in Robbie's death.
Amanda Fillmore was never a suspect, and police spoke with her. They found her to be telling the truth about almost every detail of her life, including intimate details with her and Larry Richmond Sr. and their relationship.
And at this point, they had started, connecting the dots that, at least alluded to Larry Richmond Sr. and Larry Richmond Jr.'s involvement with respect to the stolen firearm.
We have 2 more people down here now involved in this case. And one is your dad.
Okay.
And things aren't looking so good here.
Okay.
What do you know about this gun?
It came up missing the day of or a couple of days before I started at the pawn shop.
That's not true. I've talked to the regional manager, I've talked to the ATF guys. That's not exactly the way it's going down. The gun came up missing while you were an employee.
Yeah, I was sitting in the pawn shop, and then somebody came up and said there was a gun outside. And then we called it in.
So Larry Jr. is there when it's missing. And so now you know he's involved in this somehow.
I got some bad news for you, son. I think you're heading down the same path your dad's heading.
For detectives, nothing is adding up. So they make a drastic move and descend upon the Dorr family while they're saying their final goodbyes.
So you watch as those 4 detectives take Becky away for questioning.
Yes. The look on her face was just like stone.
Tell us what happened. How this all went down.
At the funeral, police decided to question you again, to pull you out?
Yeah. After we had taken Robbie to the mausoleum, and I was taking some flowers or something out to the car, they came and told me that they had a few more questions for me.
In my head, I was actually thinking, well, this is pointless. They're just wasting their time. They need to get out there and do something else. But, I'm thinking they got to touch all bases.
Becky arrives at the Evansville Police Department. Larry Richmond Sr., his son Larry Richmond Jr., and her sister Mandy are already there.
So basically, I wanted you to kind of take care of yourself, take care of your family, and then bring you here and go back, just hash through everything, every detail. Okay?
You really want to know about her life and their lives together. What time did she expect him home? Okay, what did you do that day? Who called you that day? Who did you speak to?
What kind of phone calls did they ask you about?
What phone calls I had had that day, the day of Rob's death. They also asked me what phone numbers were what, whose were certain phone numbers.
Well, the one we'd be interested, obviously, is the one right before your husband was shot and killed. Right? If you were in our shoes?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And that's this number here. Do we know who this number is right here?
I don't recognize it.
There's a reason why detectives are so focused on Becky's phone activity. When they collected her cell phone originally, nothing looked suspicious, but they just received the raw data from her cell phone carrier.
When you start looking at the extraction data, you're starting to see that maybe what we can't see with the naked eye is still there under the surface. One element that we saw that raised a lot of eyebrows was a deleted phone call from a contact known as Larry Ali. About 15 minutes before the 911 call that Robbie had been shot.
I don't recall talking to someone like 5 minutes before Rob was killed.
I've been honest with you from the get-go. That's all I ask of you is your honesty, okay?
And I understand that. I don't recall talking to someone like 5 minutes before Rob was killed. I don't.
They had information that she didn't have, and so at this point, they're asking her questions that they know the answers to.
Becky, don't get yourself into something now you can't get yourself out of, please.
I understand that.
Okay, so take a deep breath and tell us who you talked to 5 minutes before your husband was killed in your driveway, getting out of his truck in the back of the head. Because I'm telling you, the federal investigation, the FBI, we are looking into this as a federal crime.
They keep pressing her, and finally, after 90 minutes of questioning, she comes clean.
So who did you talk to 5 minutes before your husband was gunned down in the driveway? Becky, we know the answer. So who was it?
My sister's fiance.
The contact, Larry Ali, would later find out is Larry Richmond Sr.
Wait a second here. You spoke to Larry Sr., and he just got out of jail 11 months ago for murder. And now your husband's dead. I mean, if you're not chasing that pathway, you're not doing your job. It's as simple as that.
So what did you talk to him about? And do not lie, because we know his history, we know everything about him.
I don't know I know what happened to Rob in my driveway, but I don't know who did it. I don't know. I honestly don't know who did it.
Why are you lying? You didn't even tell us about the conversation. We had to get to this point.
She wasn't being forthcoming, especially for someone that just lost their husband, who would want the killer to be brought in and justice to be found.
For Becky, I think nobody can prepare themselves to be accused of something they know they didn't do.
I want the truth.
Rob told me that recently, the last time that we went out with Larry and my sister Mandy, that they had been talking about lights on the garage. And that Larry would be coming out sometime soon to do a motion sensor. With Rob though. Conversation basically was, I asked him about the motion sensor lights.
3 minutes later, put spot bullets in the back of your husband. Come on!
You understand why police were a little bit concerned when they saw that you had a call from a felon who had murdered somebody else and had just gotten out of prison for it, and that call had happened minutes before your husband was gunned down in your driveway.
I understand where they were coming from, but by the same token, I have a habit of erasing phone calls. I always have.
And as soon as you got off the call with Larry Sr., you erased that call, you're
I
saying?
erased that call.
Who deletes phone calls?
I do.
Why?
Because it takes up space in your phone.
I don't think it does. I've never heard that before.
But there's proof that I do.
She deletes absolutely everything. And I know for a fact, if I were to send her, I love you, Mom, she would keep that and she would delete everything else. She will send a text message and then she will delete it. I don't know why.
Is that a normal thing around here that people delete phone calls and messages?
Oh no, I save all of my messages I save. Nobody I know does that.
Right.
Besides her.
Unless you have something to hide.
Exactly.
Why hold a conversation back from us that was simply about a sensor light when this young man asked you how many times, any more phone calls, any more phone calls?
I didn't want you to think that I was having an affair with him because I have not had an affair.
I think Becky's motive behind denying the call was to protect not only herself but her family, and more importantly, to protect the relationship that she adored with Robbie.
The truth is, I didn't ask or tell or request anyone to do it. Did I know someone was going to kill me? Did I want it to happen? No. I would rather leave her than Robbie. And this is a nightmare. And I'm scared to death. I don't know what to do. And that's the truth.
After hours of interrogation, detectives say they can't find much else that connects Becky and Larry Sr. to the crime other than that deleted phone call. But back home, a mysterious message awaits.
He called and said he found a card with a note in it.
Every step was shocking. And just when you thought you heard the most shocking part.
Because in this family, bonds are broken.
I called her in a fit of anger of murdering.
And hearts are broken.
Sisters don't do that to each other.
Let's go back further to the day that Robbie gets killed.
Get the med kit!
Robbie, stay with me, stay with me.
Damn it!
It had everything. Sex, murder.
Nothing in that conversation had anything to do with hurting anybody.
Why delete it then?
Because I typically delete all...
No, you don't! You deleted it.
Becky Fox Dorr was hiding a lot of information from police during the course of the investigation. I hear the pop, pop, pop.
At what point did you understand that Becky was beginning to be associated with your best friend Robbie's murder?
They've got it all wrong, you know. She has nothing to gain from this.
What do you think's going on between Larry and your sister?
My little sister introduced that evil to my family. Not me.
There is a trail that points back to you.
I'm a monster to everybody now. And that's not the person I am.
New developments tonight in the murder of a firefighter in Indiana, gunned down in front of his home.
My husband just got shot. All I see is blood on the ground.
I'm in panic. Please save my husband.
Evansville police are investigating a deadly shooting.
One person was shot and killed here tonight, and police still looking for a suspect.
We have a beloved first responder, a firefighter who is dead.
Oh, God, no.
It's not supposed to be this way. He loved the fire department and just getting out there and helping people.
It was a solemn farewell for firefighter Robert Dorr.
On the day of Robbie Dorr's funeral, detectives say they make two major discoveries.
Larry Richmond Sr.'s son, Larry Richmond Jr., worked at River City Pawn Shop in Evansville. He's accused of stealing a Taurus Judge revolver, which ironically is the same style gun police said was used to kill Robbie Dorr.
On top of that, police say there is that suspicious phone call between Becky and Larry Sr. that she deleted and initially denied even took place.
Nothing in that conversation had anything to do with hurting anybody. It had to do with some stupid freaking lights, and it had to do with if we wanted to go out with them that weekend. And I told him.
Why delete it then?
Because I typically delete all.
No, you don't. You deleted it. And then you didn't tell me about it. And then now we're here. You're lying. And I'm not accusing you of lying. I'm showing you facts of why you've lied. Your story doesn't add up.
Then, after almost 5 hours of interrogation,
thank you, Becky. Good luck to you, okay?
They arrest Becky.
47-year-old Elizabeth Fox Dorr was arrested and charged with obstruction of justice.
Robbie Dorr's wife tonight is in jail on no bond for deleting a phone call she allegedly received before calling 911.
At what point did you understand that Becky was beginning to be associated with your best friend Robbie's murder?
The day of the funeral, something was off. You know, she wasn't grieving. She wasn't showing any emotion. And then when they picked her up for questioning, the light come on. And that's when you knew.
I thought it all started to make sense because things weren't piecing together. I didn't know why someone would do this, but then they brought her in for questioning, and I was like, it kind of makes sense.
I'm just thinking, you know, they've got it all wrong. You know, she has nothing to gain from this. She has no motive for it.
Police say Fox Dorr is not a suspect in her husband's murder.
Becky was arrested and charged with obstruction of justice, but she pleaded not guilty to those charges. So many are wondering who committed the murder.
Meanwhile, during Becky's lengthy interrogation, just a few rooms away, Larry Richmond Jr. asks to speak with the detectives again.
What's up? They said you wanted to talk to us.
Larry Richmond Jr. initially told them that he didn't know anything about that firearm. After doing that, it was clear that Larry Richmond Jr. realized that they knew more than he thought they did.
I don't know anything about the murder.
Okay.
I don't know, but I did take the gun from my workplace.
Okay. Where's the gun now?
Probably at Mandy's house.
Why would it be Mandy's house?
Because that's where my daddy put it.
Is that the gun?
Yes, sir.
We took this from your phone.
Looking at Larry Richmond Jr.'s phone, there is a string of text messages where Larry Richmond Sr. continuously asks Larry Richmond Jr. about the Peacemaker, which we would later discover was the nickname that Larry Richmond Sr. had given to the Taurus Judge.
The interrogators say, "You want to be like your father? Do you want to go to jail for 22 years? Do you want to miss your kids growing up just like your father did?" It stops here, it stops now. And he's fully cooperative at that point.
He said his father, Larry Richmond Sr., had told him at some point, if anything ever happens, I have firearms buried in the backyard.
Detectives head to Mandy's house and dig up 3 firearms with the serial numbers scratched off. They even discover surveillance footage of Larry Sr. walking to the backyard, allegedly carrying this tote bag full of guns, but the Taurus judge is not found.
When my mom, Mandy, was released, she was freaking out. Her fiance had buried guns that she knows he's not allowed to have in our backyard, which is where we buried our pet cat at some point. So that was also not great.
You didn't know he had any guns?
No.
Did he ever make you feel unsafe?
Never. He not once did that man ever made me feel unsafe. He just made me feel loved.
An Evansville man convicted of murder more than 20 years ago finds himself back in police custody tonight.
Larry Richmond Sr. is charged with multiple counts of felony weapon possession and is placed in jail. Becky is also in jail on her obstruction of justice charge. Yet police say there is nothing that specifically connects Larry Sr. and Becky to Robbie's death besides that deleted phone call from the night of the murder.
So while Becky is being questioned by investigators at the police station, her son Nathan makes a discovery at the home.
He called and said he found a card with a note in it. I told him to hold on to that card. I was going to call the detective to come pick it up.
I was going through condolence cards.
Okay.
And I found a card from Larry, which I then later found out that he had also been picked up, Larry Richmond.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a condolence from him and my Aunt Amanda. And there was a little slip of paper, like ripped notebook paper that said we need to talk, with his phone number and Larry.
Detectives start thinking, oh, he's reaching out to talk to Becky. And it changes everything as far as, wait a second, he's looking to communicate.
It looks like he had written it on the corner of like a notebook piece of paper and ripped it out.
So
and
it's more kind of the last second
thing. It wasn't written in the card. I think it was put in after, like Mandy and him signed it.
Okay.
Because he's the one that presented it to my mother. He gripped that thing all the way up until it passed into my mother's hand.
Why do you think he tried to reach out to you after the funeral?
I have
and
no
slip
clue.
that note inside the card that said,
I
we
have
have
no
to talk?
clue. I was told about it, but I never got it. I never saw it. It was never actually given to me.
I don't think that there was ever pressure that my mom had committed the murder herself. But I think it started to make a little bit more sense that, you know, someone who's already been convicted of murder could do it again.
Your Aunt Mandy and Larry, do you know anything about their relationship?
I've only honestly met Larry a handful of maybe 5 times.
Okay.
Like Thanksgiving, Christmas.
When he interacts, I mean,
He's kind of standoffish. I could tell that he's easily irritated. It was definitely well known with his facial expressions that he was upset about something that was happening.
Becky, Robbie, Larry Sr., and Mandy used to go on double dates together, but now one of them is dead, 2 of them are in jail. Detectives have already cleared Mandy of involvement in the murder, but they need to speak with her again.
Let me ask you a question. What do you think's going on between Larry and your sister? You're not the only one in this trick bag.
It was strange being in the house by myself. I'm in Rob's house, who is no longer alive, and my mother is in question now for his murder. I felt terrible about even just being in his house. I don't belong here. This is so wrong. Why am I in his house and he's not?
Mandy Fillmore has had a harrowing 48 hours. Her fiance and her sister are now both in jail. Since her last interview, police have discovered stolen guns they say were buried in her own backyard by her fiance. So detectives want to ask her more about Larry Sr.'s whereabouts on the night of the murder.
Let's go back further to the day that Robbie gets killed. Where do you go after work?
Home.
Home? Okay. Is Larry home?
No.
To your best recollection, where's Larry?
Mandy had previously told detectives that Larry Sr. was with her the evening Robbie was shot. Now she seems to confirm that she has no idea where he really was that night.
Would your kids normally been home on a Tuesday night?
Yeah, we all would have normally been home. But I mean, every day he comes and goes. I thought he was cheating on me.
Okay. I can tell you us, with a lot of women, and we've had one just walked out of here, and we had one in here last night. And they're all being cooperative, and they all have information that's positive to our case. Okay? So you're not the only one in this trick bag.
I have a core memory of waking up at 4 in the morning, and it was my mom screaming at Larry because he had a dating app on his phone. And she was screaming, you know, like, who are these people? And he was just saying, baby, 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 calm down. Like, I forgot I had these apps.
That note to Becky in the card. When was the first time you heard about that note?
And the detectives, they told me everything.
Was this note in it when you gave her the sympathy card? Does this raise a red flag to you? For a guy that's only met your sister 5 times?
Flag number 2000.
Your sister is in custody for deleting a phone call that was very important. And there's a 5-minute phone call right before Robbie's murder. I mean, minutes before Robbie's murder. And guess who that came from? Larry. What do you think's going on between Larry and your sister?
I thought we'd been out with him 3 times.
Okay.
That's what I thought. The detectives told me that she cheated. Yeah, I say they both cheated on me. You know, her more so than him. I didn't know him that long. She'd been my sister my whole life. Sisters don't do that to each other, so.
Mandy was the one that called me on the phone. She was crying, telling me about, oh, I can't believe that your mom was having an affair with my boyfriend.
Larry Sr. exercises his right to a lawyer and remains silent, and Becky still adamantly denies having an affair. But investigators are sticking to their theory that the two were having an affair and conspired to murder Robbie Dorr. A few days after Mandy's interview, they questioned Larry Richmond Jr. again.
Do you think your dad's involved in the murder of Robbie?
I hope not. I mean, he missed out on 22 years of my life. Why would he want to miss out on his grandson's life?
Has he ever talked about Becky before?
He said one time that they went out to Pistons. I guess Becky was drunk and like the firefighter dude was there too, and they was just dancing and doing all this, and Becky kept looking at him. He said she was cute and fine. And I was like, dog, that's your girl's sister. Like, what are you doing?
Is it possible that Larry was just trying to hit on Becky and that she didn't reciprocate?
No.
I was like, what's up with Becky? Did you Becky? He was like, no. And then I asked him again. He was like, man, I had to. Like, I was like, dog, you were down bad.
Is this your sister? Was this a person or by text?
By person.
So the last call that was on Becky's phone from Larry Richmond Sr. prior to February 26th of 2019 occurred approximately around January 12th of 2019. So there had been no evidence of any communication between Becky Fox Dorr and Larry Richmond Sr. for a significant period of time leading up to the night Robbie Dorr was murdered.
Never went out with him, or my sister by myself. Was offered to, and I said I didn't want to. I didn't want to go out without Rob. Then by February 26, 2019, Rob was dead.
As the Evansville Police Department continues to investigate Robbie's death, Larry Richmond Jr. and Larry Richmond Sr. head to court.
An Evansville father and son are facing federal weapons charges.
Larry Jr. pleads guilty to his stolen weapons charges and serves no time in jail, while Larry Sr. pleads guilty to multiple counts of felony firearms possession and is sentenced to 5 years in prison. And 7 months after Becky was charged with obstruction of justice for deleting that phone call from the DA's office, a shocking announcement.
Our top story tonight, charges have been dropped against the wife of a murdered Evansville firefighter 7 months after they were filed.
We thought here police were onto something, had made an arrest, and then suddenly they're letting her go. What do they know? They're not telling us.
It seemed like our life was starting to get more normal again, but it also kind of felt like it's not over.
The obstruction of justice charge against Becky may have been dropped, but Robbie's daughter remains steadfast and her opinion of Becky.
I immediately took possession of my dad's estate. I know this sounds really crappy, but I kind of just took everything. I eventually sold the house and I let the car get repoed. I just didn't want her to have it. It's like, no, you don't deserve this. You don't deserve to be where my dad laid his head. No.
I just lost my husband. Honestly, the only thing that I wanted was the car that was given to me as a gift for my wedding from Rob. That was it. That's all I wanted.
At this point, police do not have a suspect. They do not have a murder weapon. And we're wondering, what is the next step?
In this case, the location data matches up with the surveillance footage. You're starting to see the entire picture.
It's been nearly a year since firefighter Robbie Dorr was killed in his driveway. His wife Becky hearing the gunshots. Robbie! So far, no arrests have been made for Robbie's murder, and for his family, the wait for justice is taking a toll.
It didn't feel like they were making headway on what happened, and that's when my anger started to really set in.
I had to do something and make a big change, so I decided I'd join the Army. I was gone for a year. It was hard because I don't know if my mom's doing okay.
Becky's son, Nathan, meets with detectives again, and he tells them that she already has a new man in her life.
So she's engaged again.
Engaged again?
Yes.
And like we just discussed, it hasn't even been a year.
Correct. She had like 2 boyfriends before this gentleman.
Becky tells us she was never engaged, but admits she did date.
And I was waiting for her to say something to me, and I said, Mom, what's that on your hand? She goes, oh, nothing. I called her in a fit of anger, of murdering.
Then, on the 1-year anniversary of Robbie's killing, a surprise announcement. Police name a person of interest in the case.
41-year-old Evansville resident, Larry Holly Richmond Sr. Richmond Sr. had a relationship with the Dorr family at the time Robert was executed.
Richmond came on our radar back in March of last year after police say that some guns were found buried outside of his home in his backyard. Now, as we've reported, Richmond was convicted of murder more than 20 years ago.
Authorities believe Larry Sr.'s cell phone could provide critical clues in the case, so they get a search warrant and seize it.
I'm John Carter. I'm a criminal investigator with the High-Tech Crime Unit out of the Vanderbilt County Prosecutor's Office.
In early 2021, we were provided with a device that belonged to Larry Richmond Sr.
But there's a big problem here. Police don't have the passcode to get into his phone.
In this particular case, we applied the algorithm to the phone.
The computers will literally run every possibility of passwords you can imagine. That takes a long time.
In this case, it takes months, but then they hit pay dirt.
One day we came in and a potential passcode had been found. I was calling everybody from the Evansville Police Department, letting them know that we had found the passcode to the phone.
Investigators are finally able to get inside of Larry Richmond Sr.'s phone to see what's inside of it. And what they said they find is pretty interesting.
We were able to see his location data that put him near the scene of the crime at approximately 6:35 p.m., approximately 20 minutes prior to the murder. We then had him traveling north and turning his phone off at approximately 6:54 p.m., and then turning his phone back on at approximately 7:20 p.m. near a gas station. During the course of our examination of the digital evidence, we discovered that Larry Richmond Sr. was using a police scanner app that's going to raise a lot of questions that need answers.
Larry Richmond Sr. listens to the police scanner app both before and after the murder. We were able to see that he was looking at the news. There's a popular Facebook site in Evansville called Evansville Watch. He was reviewing that. And also, notably, he was looking at photos of Robbie Dorr. There were a lot of cached images that his phone was saving from Robbie Dorr's Facebook.
Authorities recover a call log from Larry Sr.'s iPhone that shows he allegedly made several calls to Becky in the weeks before Robbie's murder.
In Larry Richmond's case, his entire phone, he deleted almost everything in it, but we can see everything that's also been deleted that hasn't been overwritten. So December of 2018 to the murder date, they had 12 phone calls and some text messages.
Some of those calls only lasted seconds. If I answered, it wasn't answered and hung up. You know what I'm saying? Because I didn't realize that there was even that many.
He is the fiance of your sister. Are you thinking that maybe he was in love with you?
I never got the impression that he was interested.
Authorities get a tip from an inmate who, according to a police report, alleges Larry Sr. confirmed having an affair with Becky, and more importantly, even claims that Larry Sr. confessed to killing Robbie.
What possible reason would he have to tell a cellmate after he was arrested for the gun charges that he murdered Rob and that he was having an affair with you?
I don't have an answer for that because that never happened.
You think his cellmate was lying about it?
He had to have been. I don't have, I can't tell you something I don't know.
So things that were happening point closer and closer to Larry Richmond Sr. being the person that we need to be looking at.
3 years after Robbie's murder, Evansville authorities finally make their move.
A short while ago, Larry Richmond Sr. and Elizabeth Fox Dorr were charged with the murder of Robbie.
Larry Richmond Sr. and Becky were charged with murder and conspiracy to commit murder. They pled not guilty to all the charges.
When they finally told me they were going to charge both of them with murder, I was like, all right, let's go. We've got this.
They believe that she was part of the murder. At the time, I was thinking, they've got it all wrong. They're wasting their time.
What the prosecution is saying is that you conspired with your sister's fiance to murder your husband.
But I didn't.
Court TV's newest case, a good one, folks, the firefighter wife murder trial in Indiana.
It's the state of Indiana versus Elizabeth Fox Dorr. So why are they talking about Barbie?
He calls her Barbie, and then at the end, signs it you know who.
I'm not Barbie.
My name is Mark Phillips, and I am lead counsel in the trial involving our client, Becky Fox Dorr.
My name is Rob Phillips, and I'm the co-counsel. I've been working with my dad for 9 years.
We've tried several of these kinds of cases.
It's been a while in Vanderburgh County that I can think of this big a trial. This is a big deal because it had everything, you know, sex, murder.
This is the first case I've tried as the elected prosecutor, so the stakes were very high. Stan is the prior elected prosecutor and has tried hundreds of murder cases, so I knew just who to try this case with.
I think I said to her in the beginning, not totally kidding, if we lose this case, your career's over.
Since this is the first trial in the county to allow TV cameras in court, what is already a lightning rod of a murder case gets even more attention.
The public, these are details that they have wanted to know for years, are finally coming to light because there are cameras in the courtroom.
Did it make it much harder that this was all televised?
There were times that I really wished that the camera was not on me. I have no control. I'm a monster to everybody now, and that's not the person I am.
Elizabeth Fox Dorr is charged with murder and conspiring with Larry Richmond to commit that murder. Her trial is scheduled to be heard first. She's pleaded not guilty. If she's convicted, she could face up to life in prison.
So we're now at Becky's trial, but because she is charged with conspiracy to commit murder, the jury is hearing a lot about Larry Richmond Sr., who has his own separate trial scheduled for next year.
Larry Richmond is not literally on trial here, but in a sense he is, because to prove there was a conspiracy and that she conspired with him to have her husband killed, we have to show that he did in fact kill her husband.
You won't hear one piece of evidence that says they were lovers. That's speculation and supposition. There is no evidence that Becky Dorr knowingly or intentionally aided, induced, or caused Larry Richmond Sr. to commit the offense of murder, that evidence doesn't exist.
Their actions were very much linked, and that's what makes it a conspiracy case.
Essentially what police and prosecution were saying is that you didn't pull the trigger to kill Robbie, but you set it all up.
No. I had nothing to do with it. Nothing at all.
A guard at the jail where Becky and Larry were held before trial tells of a mysterious note attached to, of all things, a packet of ramen noodles. And it's addressed to someone named Barbie. In prison slang, this is called a kite.
Inmates will tape kites to the top of ramen noodle packs and they'll give them to the laundry workers pretty much as payment to pass it on.
The inmate workers find the packet with the note attached to it and immediately give this to their supervisor, who's a correctional officer.
I ask that the witness be allowed to read Exhibit 91 to the jury.
Hello, Barbie. Just wanted to drop you a line or two. They will bring plea after plea. Don't fall for it. Keep your head up and go to trial.
He calls her Barbie, and then at the end signs it you-know-who, and he's talking about not testifying at trial.
A handwriting expert for the prosecution claims that the handwriting on the condolence card matches that of the handwriting on the ramen packet addressed to Barbie.
Were you also asked to make a determination regarding who authored the letter to Barbie?
Yes.
And what was your determination?
That one person wrote both of those documents.
And so we knew that it came from Larry Richmond Sr.
A Barbie letter. I didn't initiate that, and I'm not Barbie, so I don't. You get what I'm saying? I've never initiated any contact with him, ever. Ever.
The prosecution keeps the focus on Larry Richmond Sr. and where they allege he was on the night of the murder.
They have a phone conversation around that time that lasts for 4 minutes and 18 seconds, and then he turns his phone off. His phone's completely black with no data at all. The murder happens, and then his phone comes back on as he's walking into the Circle K.
Around 7:12 p.m., Larry Richmond Sr. Pulls up in a Ford Taurus and soon after enters the store and then leaves.
He knows the news that a firefighter was shot because he's listening to a police scanner app.
But remember, this isn't Larry Sr.'s trial, it's Becky's. And the state's case against her keeps coming back to the phone call she deleted the night her husband was murdered.
Just 15 minutes before Robbie Dorr was ambushed and killed, the defendant spoke with Larry Richmond Sr. on the phone. As soon as the defendant was finished talking to Larry Richmond Sr., she deleted that phone call. Were any other phone calls deleted around this date and time?
There were no deleted phone calls on February the 26th of 2019 other than the deleted phone call from the contact known as Larry Ali.
ABC News reached out to Larry Richmond Sr. and his attorney to ask about his relationship with Becky and the allegations authorities have made against him. They declined to comment, and Larry Sr. has pleaded not guilty to the murder and conspiracy charges against him.
The defendant in this case, Elizabeth Fox Dorr, thought she could delete a phone call and get away with murder.
Prosecutors play some highlights of the police interview Becky gave days after the crime.
At least can you admit to us that you withheld the information about who you knew that was on the phone call?
I honestly did not recognize the phone number.
The defense says there's no evidence suggesting their client planned the killing, and today they tried to hammer that point home by grilling the original detective in the case.
There was a phone conversation that you asked Becky about at some point, correct?
Correct.
And you allege it's with Larry Richmond Sr., right?
It is, yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You have no idea what they talked about, do you?
No.
And you know who initiated that call, don't you?
He did.
Who?
Larry Richmond Sr.
He did. In fact, in your investigation, you don't have any evidence that Becky Dorr ever initiated a phone conversation of any kind with Larry Richmond Sr., correct?
Correct.
The one big bombshell in this case, Becky's son is about to take the stand.
Pause and raise your right hand.
Did your mother ever talk to you about the firefighter pension after the murder of Robbie Dorr?
Objection. Overruled.
Could he be the one that actually sends her to prison?
It has been a day of motions and objections from the defense as nearly 10 people testify in the case.
Judge, I'm going to object to the form of the question. I object to the card for the same reasons I objected in previous hearings. I have a new objection based on his answer. Excuse me, I'm going to object. May we approach?
Fox Dorr and Richmond Sr. may have been romantically involved.
She has photos with him. She spent holidays with him. And they even went on a double date with her sister and Robbie Dorr.
There's been so much discussion about the nature of Becky's relationship with Larry Sr. Now prosecutors argue they have an eyewitness, Larry Richmond Jr., and he's got a secret to share.
Although she tells detectives she didn't know him well enough to form an opinion of him, Richmond Sr.'s own son is going to testify about a time he was with his father.
Do you know the defendant in this case, Elizabeth Fox Dorr? Have you ever met her?
Yes.
She got in the vehicle and that's the first time you saw her?
Mm-hmm.
And did anything happen before she got out of the car?
They kissed.
They kissed?
Mm-hmm.
And was it a mutual kiss or could you tell?
Yes, they both leaned in.
It sounds like damning testimony, but Becky's defense team goes on offense.
Your testimony is that your dad gets in a vehicle with a woman in March of 2018, within a matter of days of his release from prison. There's been testimony in this trial that Amanda Fillmore didn't meet your dad until May of 2018.
Okay.
Larry Richmond Jr. took the stand and told a story about seeing his father kiss Becky behind Robbie Dorr's home in approximately March of 2018.
If there's evidence in this trial that she didn't even live there in March of 2018, that put a dent in your story, wouldn't it?
Yes.
You didn't know who she was before your dad got out of prison, correct?
I may have my time dates.
I didn't ask you that. Is that your sworn testimony here today?
Yes.
In fact, Mr. Richmond, would you agree with me? It'd be awful hard for your dad to be kissing somebody 2 months before he met Amanda, wouldn't it?
Correct.
Probably be impossible, wouldn't it?
Correct.
The prosecution says that you were having an affair with Larry Sr.
No. No. No chance.
Larry Jr. saw you kissing in the car.
I have never even spoken a word to Junior, never met him.
Now, Becky's son Nathan takes the stand.
What did you call Robbie? I know he was your stepfather, but what did you call him?
I just called him Dad.
Do you think of him like a father?
Yeah.
Did you know Larry Richmond at all?
Unfortunately.
Something Nathan said to the jury had many wondering, could money be a motive for Robbie's murder?
The evidence will suggest her motive was financial gain with her immediate interest in the firefighter pension. Did your mother ever talk to you about the firefighter pension after the murder of Robbie Dorr?
Yes.
And when's the first time she brought that conversation up?
From my remembrance, almost the same night.
And how many times did you say that she talked to you about it?
We had a conversation about it daily, and I got frustrated several times, and I was like, Mom, there are procedures we have to go through to get to that point.
Why are so many people blaming you, even your own son?
I don't have an answer for that.
You know your mom was not a beneficiary for purposes of any financial benefit, correct?
I don't know who's beneficiary on anything.
If you were to learn that your mom had no financial interest as a result of Robbie's death, would that surprise you?
I mean, no.
Were you awarded any of Rob's pension?
No. I didn't want anything. I never asked for anything. Lindsay was his beneficiary for everything. I didn't have a problem with it. I didn't want anything.
The most significant evidence in this case was an eyewitness testimony. The most significant by far would have been the phone call that was deleted.
Why that night did you delete Larry's phone?
It is a habit for me to delete phone calls. because Larry's not a person I normally talk to, so I deleted.
You're aware that your mom would frequently delete phone calls, correct?
Not all the time. All the time. I mean, she would delete a phone call right in front of me.
There is a trail that points back to you.
The only reason why is because I took a phone call, I erased a phone call.
Over 6 days, over 20 witnesses testified in this trial. Sons, a daughter, a sister, but not the defendant.
In this case, Becky didn't testify. Becky maintained her conviction the entire time that she had no involvement in this crime.
They don't want you to listen to the truth. I felt like I just listened to a screenplay of a crime novel that was based entirely on fiction.
And now, on behalf of the state of Indiana, I ask you to return the only verdict that's justified by the evidence in this case: murder and conspiracy to commit murder.
With that, you may begin your deliberation.
All right.
During a wait for the verdict, the jury is out and tensions are high.
You're sitting with a client. Her life is going to change in the matter of seconds.
And I held Nathan's hand and I closed my eyes, and tears just start flowing.
The courtroom was tense in the moments leading up to the verdict reading.
State of Indiana versus Elizabeth Joanne Fox Durer.
Utter silence fills the courtroom as the verdict is read.
We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of count 1, count 2. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of count 2 as charged.
I held my aunt's hand and I held Nathan's hand and I closed my eyes, and tears just start flowing. Like, that is all we could have ever hoped for.
Did hearing the word guilty come as a relief to you?
Yes. Been 5 years waiting to hear those words.
Did you think they would come back with a not guilty?
Yeah, because there is no evidence that I asked anybody to hurt, much less kill Rod. None.
Is there even a shadow of a doubt in your mind that maybe she didn't conspire to murder your father?
No.
Not even a remote possibility?
No. She did this. I believe it with every bone in my body.
Everybody just has this idea that she's this villainous woman that was out for money. I want more people to see the actual good side of her, the kind of person that she actually is. It's not adding up. There's something missing.
Because other than one phone call from February 26th of 2019, law enforcement gained no new evidence against Becky Fox Durer over the course of the next 5 years to allege or show that she had any involvement.
At Becky's sentencing, Robbie's loved ones make emotional pleas.
I feel like my world is just crumbling down. I had nightmares for years and I still struggle and battle with them. She took my daughter's Poppy from her. I will never forget the scream, "No, Poppy, don't go." It crushed me. Still to this day, she talks to him.
I used to radiate with pride, saying that I was her son. I can no longer radiate with the same resounding brightness. I hope the greatest man that ever lived haunts her nightmares, and that she never forgets that he truly did love her wholeheartedly. Thank you, Your Honor.
What's your relationship like with Nathan?
Up until evidently recently, he and I were best friends. Now, I guess it's not good.
The court finds the following sentences are appropriate on count 1. Be a sentence of 60 years. On count 2 will be a sentence of 30 years.
90 years in prison. So basically, she will be spending the rest of her life behind bars.
And the sentence?
I'll be lucky to make 30. I mean, if we're honest.
Did the sentencing bring you any relief?
It did. He said 90 years, and I was like, she's gonna be in there forever. Like she so deserves.
Is there a way you could rehabilitate your relationship with your sister Becky?
I love her and I forgive her. I know that she did a bad thing, and I wish she wouldn't have done it.
While Mandy is no longer engaged to Larry Sr., she still holds on to him in her own way. That ring you're wearing on your wedding finger, did Larry give you that?
Yeah, he got it for me.
After all that, still wearing the ring.
I wear it because I love him, but I was also raised on Jesus and forgiveness.
The Evansville Fire Department has honored Robbie Doerr's memory with a plaque and a fire truck.
The truck was dedicated to Robbie Doerr, who is our most recent deceased active duty firefighter.
Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.
I've relived that night too many times in the last 5 years. It still brings back all of the pain.
It's now yours. I know. It's big.
I'll never be able to call him. I'll never get to hear his voice.
What is that?
I'll never get to hug him again.
Becky Fox Doerr is currently in prison. She says she's planning on appealing her conviction.
Her alleged lover and the accused gunman, Larry Richmond Sr., is scheduled to go to trial in May of 2025. He declined to be interviewed. That's our program for tonight. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Deborah Roberts.
And I'm David Muir. From all of us here at 2020 and ABC News, good night.